Utira no mai hara mai. Utira ke ahu hei whakatūwhera. Hei ho nore ko te ato e maungarongo ki te whenua he whakaro pai ki ngā tāngata katoa amen. Ngai e ho he ngā kau hauki roto I tēnā I tēnō māta whakatongi o tō wairua Tapuwae āwhina I tō tohi a māta ki hei whai kaha e māta I ngā hua pai, ngā hua tika, ngā hua pono e pāna ki tēnei o tātou hui. Kia taua e mātou te rangi Māori. Ko tira te atua koe nei ngā whakamuiwichi whakore tō ingoa tapu. Āmine.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor. Meeting notices. Look, before we get underway, I'd just like to firstly acknowledge Mayor Tanchos and Deputy Mayor Dukes for the privilege of chairing this committee for this triennium. It's been some time since I've sat in the chair, and of course Projects and Services was one of my pet standing committees back in earlier times. Before, under the previous mayor, it underwent a name change and we formerly knew it as Infrastructure and Planning. So it's great to see it resuming its title that had been known for some years of Projects and Services. So again, welcome to all councillors, staff, members of the public, and also to those who may be online. So without any further ado, we'll get into the meeting notices. And the first one being meeting notice 1.1, live streaming. The Whakatane District Council live streams council and standing committee meetings held in Totara Room within the council building. The webcast will live stream directly to council's YouTube channel in real time. The purpose of streaming meetings live is to encourage transparency of council meetings. Welcome to members of the public who have joined online and to those within the public gallery. By remaining in the public gallery, it is understood your consent has been given if your presence is inadvertently broadcast. Please be aware the microphones in Totara Room are sensitive to noise, so please remain quiet throughout the meeting unless asked to speak. Item 2, or public notice 2, health and safety. In case of an emergency, please follow the building wardens or make your way to the nearest exit. The meeting point is located at Peace Park on Boone Street, which is directly behind here. Bathroom facilities are located opposite the Chambers foyer entrance, the entrance being off the Margaret Mahi Court. Moving on now to item 2, apologies. At the time of compiling this agenda, we have an apology from Councillor Morgan Ranui. Can I call for a mover, please? Councillor Dennis. Can I have a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Dukes. All those in favour, please say aye. Against and carried. Thank you. Acknowledgements. Do any councillors have any acknowledgements they'd like to make? I've got one that I'd like to make, and that is a bouquet to the Parks and Reserve staff. For those of us who follow Facebook, one of our residents back in January put up a photo of the roundabout garden on the Strand Commerce Street. And for those of us, we're fully aware that that garden is annually through the spring, summer planted out in the non-stop tuberous begonias. That post on Facebook, up to this point in time, has received over 900 likes. So again, just a big bouquet to our Parks and Reserve staff. It's not only Whakatane that benefits from these beautiful gardens, but also the satellite towns right across our district. So again, it is, you know, a highlight that we enjoy as residents, and I know visitors to our district also appreciate it. So thank you. Deputy Mayor Dukes.
I'd just like to acknowledge that we have the Wild Food Festival on tomorrow. So that's always a big event, so hopefully we'll see lots of faces out there for another successful event.
Excellent. Councillor Boyden.
Talking about events on Saturday. Also too, just to acknowledge that the Mātātua regionals will be held next weekend on the 27th and the 28th. So that's going to be quite a large event, and there'll be a lot of people in town, and hopefully our businesses and our communities will benefit. Thank you.
Okay. Is it the end of the acknowledgements, tributes? Okay, moving on to item 4, conflicts of interest. Do any elected members have a conflict of interest to declare during the course of today's proceedings? Councillor Dennis.
Mr Chairman, I wish to declare a conflict of interest when we come to 6.2, which is the road closures. and in particular the one for the Matata Hotel Bike Week. My fire brigade, of which I'm the chief fire officer of, will be running a raffle to raise a reasonable amount of money to purchase a new van. So I will excuse myself from the table and go to the back for that one, sir.
Duly noted. Thank you, councillor. Moving on to item number 5, public participation. Miss Georgina Monsell, who was to speak today, has withdrawn her request to speak to the public. Moving on then into the first of our reports, which is on the amendments to the Register of Parking Restrictions, Prohibitions and Limitations report, and that starts off on page 11. Now, to talk to this report, we have Wendy, and Annie is also coming forward. So who would like to present, or is there anything to be added to the report? Wendy? Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Morena tātou. Morena chair. The purpose of this report is to provide updates regarding the amendments to the parking register. I take the report as read, but just to quickly highlight some of the key points from the report. We have 2 amendments that have been recently actioned, one being a P10 parking restriction outside the new toilet block, which was erected in the Pack and Save car park on Lovelock Street. Along with that, we have installed broken yellow lines outside Te Kura or Te Tiko for safety improvements. Additionally, we have 3 proposed amendments for review. One is the relocation of the bus stop on Stewart Street, providing more car parks for the hospital. Our second one is a request for a parklet outside Ariba on the Strand. And thirdly, we have a request for a disability car park outside the Croquet Club on Short Street. I now hand it back to the chair and open for any partai.
Thank you, Wendy. Okay, councillors, look, we're open for questions of clarification. So first to kick off, Deputy Mayor Dukes.
Thank you and welcome. Just in regards to 4.4, the parklet, do we receive revenue from the existing 2 parklets that are there already?
All of the costs are covered for the parklets in the sense of relocation fees and administrative fees. They are they have an agreement with us called a licence to occupy the park, that reserve, the road reserve, and we review that annually, and we review it, it's up for renew every 2 years, and they cover all of the costs for relocation.
I guess we're charging an annual rental fee for the parklets, and do the current occupants, I suppose you'd say, pay that fee?
We only have administrative fees and relocation fees at this stage, but the parklet licence to occupy is up for review every 2 years, and those are things that we can also consider.
Okay. Councillor Omick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everybody. I've actually got an issue with the parklet. I mean, basically, that premise is not open with very little patronage for 90% of the day, and yet we're going to lose an additional 2 car parks, and we already have one of the other parklets who are only open towards the other end of the day. And considering we're not really getting any generation of revenue from it, I've got a bit of an issue with it. So what was their justification for needing the parklet? Because my anecdotal observation of that area is that they have very little visitation, even sometimes in the evening until the late hours, if they're able to go there late.
Thank you, that's a good question. We initially had 3 parklets that were built in conjunction with EPIC and the Chamber of Commerce. The 3rd parklet has, of course, been in storage this whole time. The parklets were shared around originally, and each time they were moved, the costs were covered by the person, the business that was having the parklet. Ariba have seen how beneficial the other 2 parklets have been to those businesses, and they think that it would be beneficial to them to have one down the other end of the Strand to promote their business, and also to promote more members of the public to be down the other end of the Strand as well.
Just supplementary for me, Mr Chair. So they gave no evidence of their patronage numbers and people struggling to find parks? I mean, no, it's just like, it's a very busy end of the Strand, as it is, and just losing another few car parks just seems to, for very little foot traffic inside the business, just seems like we could better utilise those car parks rather than them having taken out of action for 2 years.
Annie?
Through the chair, if I can just add to it. So part of the reason the parklets were created in the first port of call a couple of years ago was around trying to increase the vibrancy and sort of that interaction between, like, not just vehicles, but people and dining out and that sort of experience in the Strand. So 3 parklets were created on the understanding that they would be used. Up until this point, only 2 have been in use. No one else has requested the use of that 3rd one. We've had a request come through and we've evaluated what sort of impact it would have on parking. Yes, it does remove 2 car parks, but from the experience we've had in that area, there's generally surplus of at least those 2 car parks, plus there's a number of car parks available in close proximity along Kakaroa Drive, both along the street of Kakaroa Drive and the large car park sort of towards the side of the warehouse. So in terms of trying to fulfil the original intentions of why those parklets were created, this is an opportunity to do that.
I still have my reservations about that one, thank you.
Okay, councillor Hamill.
Thank you. I have a question around the Croquet Club, and it seems like there's an agreement between council and the Croquet Club to prepare for a disability park. Who pays for that? Is that a joint arrangement, or does the Croquet Club bear the cost?
So the car park is in the vicinity of the Croquet Club, but it's not exclusively for the Croquet Club. It's actually been set up close to the War Memorial Hall and the sports fields and those sorts of things, so it's quite central to that whole sort of public arena. So the cost of it is just purely the line marking, and that will just be covered under our standard maintenance and renewal budgets. But yeah, it's not exclusively for the Croquet Club, it just sort of came about through conversations with them.
Supplementary, if I
Go
may.
for it.
I understand the tennis club had to install one recently in the car park adjoining Warren, the Rex Morpeth, and I believe that the tennis club had to pay for that, so that's why I'm inquiring.
Annie?
I'm not sure about the details of that. If it's not on the road, it may have been part of their own precinct. I'm not too sure of the exact location, and so yeah, if it's within their own property, it's not something council can co-fund because it'll only be for their patrons. But because this one's in the public road reserve, available for any public use, it's seen as a public benefit.
Okay, councillor O'Brien.
Just returning to the Ariba parklet, does that mean that parklet will be available for their patrons in whatever time they're open, like up to midnight, for them to utilise?
Yes, it would be, just like the road is available to any member of the public at all times of the day. So there is a licence to occupy that the Ariba patrons can, the Ariba business can use that for their patrons, but all members of the public always continuously have a right to road reserve. So even when there's a licence to occupy, there's still an inherent right for the public to be in that space at any time. So yes, their patrons would be able to be in that space at that time.
All right, thank you. Just wondering how they're going to control that when they have they tend to close their doors and one in, one out later on in the night, and how they're going to be able to control that with people sitting out inside that parklet.
They haven't gone into the detail of that with them, but that would, it's certainly something we can ensure that they have a decent management plan around that. Certainly for any sort of liquor licensing or any requirements around that, there's strict protocols that they would need to follow. This was more just for the installation of the parklet, but we can certainly check in with them around what their sort of thoughts of how they're going to manage that is.
All right, thank you.
Are there any further questions of clarification? Okay, councillor Boynton.
Thank you, Chair, Mr. Chair. I just had a question regarding 4.1, and that was just regarding the relocation of the toilet from James Street to Lovelock. Will that be clearly signposted, you know, for the public, particularly if it's going to be a new place where the wharepaku is?
Through the chair, so this was more around the car parking that was needed, you know, to have some time
to go
limited
to the
changes so
toilet.
that people could easily access the toilet. I don't know all the details around, someone from the Places Open Spaces team might know a bit more about the actual toilet itself, but I believe it would have all the typical signage to show that it's a public wharepaku. And the area of the car park that it's installed in is actually public road reserve, so it kind of adjoins the Pack and Save car park, but it is actually public road reserve, and we've done a bit around trying to improve the signage and, you know, making sure there's not Pack and Save signage in that area, so people actually realise it's a all-day public car park through that piece. But yeah, I believe the wharepaku is appropriately signposted.
Great, thank you.
Mayor Tanchos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions. The first one, just going back to Ariba again, and to say I quite like the parklets. I think they do add a bit of life to the street, and kind of at that end of the Strand, there's quite a bit of open air. You've got the other side on the bar over there, and they've got their outside space. You've got the bean at the end, they've got a bit of outside, and so it kind of fits in. I quite like it. It's quite nice. But I just wanted to clarify, because I didn't quite catch the answer to Councillor O'Brien's question around, well, I got that those parklets are on road reserve, so they're always open to all members of the public. I wasn't clear whether it's the intention that it be primarily for the use of that particular facility. And I suppose my question, I was thinking there's two bars next to each other. Is the idea that kind of it's open to anyone to use? And in general with the parklets, because they are kind of privatising public space. So whether in general the intention is that these are specifically for the use of the premises, or are they intended to be more open use?
So through the chair, so primarily the licence to occupy is for the business that has requested it, so for Ariba, so they're, you know, responsible for maintaining it, relocating it, and, you know, it is clearly available for their patrons, but technically road reserve can't be exclusively given to one organisation or one sort of area, so it will always remain open to the public. But yeah, like I say, the other bar, they wouldn't be able to have their patrons go in there carrying alcohol or anything like that, because there's already strict liquor licensing rules in place. So that would sort of be something that those businesses, you know, would have to manage through their licensing provisions. But in terms of members of the public being able to use that space, it does still remain public road reserve, and always will remain public road reserve. It's just set up in a way to, create that vibrant area where people can sort of enjoy dining and entertainment out on the street, rather than, just in the building or that area just before car parks.
Thank you. My other question is around Stewart Street. And first of all, thank you for the report, because it's really easy to understand. It's well written, and so appreciate that. The yellow lines on Stewart Street that we're proposing to remove to create more parking spaces, why were they there in the first place?
Through the chair, so it was part of the bus stop. So when the bus stop was there, you need a certain amount of clear distance for the bus to be able to manoeuvre in and out. By relocating that bus stop, it also frees up the ability for that section of road to be used for parking as well. So yeah, it was just a bit of reconfiguration that still allows the bus stop to be there, but creates a lot better parking utilisation.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Dennis, to be followed by Councillor Rimmick.
No, thank you. My question's been answered.
Okay, Councillor Rimmick.
Thank you. Back to the parklets. So just in terms of, I know enhancing the vibrancy of the CBD is really important. Do we just accept the premises analysis that it's been successful, or do we have any other sort of external monitoring on whether that has been successful or not? Because some of the other shops either side might also want to utilise it, or
Through the chair, so we haven't done any specific evaluation of it. We've just sort of had anecdotal feedback around its positivity. It's certainly something, if councillors were interested in, we can do that a bit more in detail. And certainly, the parklets are available for different businesses to utilise. It's kind of like on a request basis, but it's those that have, like I said, there's been a spare one in storage for a number of years now, so kind of the demand from other businesses hasn't really been there until now. But like they say, each licence is only, so I'm not sure if it's either 1 year or 2 years, at the end of that term, any other businesses that are interested are able to take up that opportunity. They just obviously have to wear the cost of the relocation and administration of that process, and then they're responsible for sort of keeping that parklet during the time that they have it in front of their business.
all right, thank you. Just a final question. Is the licence to occupy just for that premise at that time? So if that business closed down and someone opened up, that would be a whole renegotiation?
Yes, yeah, the licences are non-transferable.
Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. In regard to the parklets, I noticed that Whakatane Hotel has tables out on the footpath where people consume alcohol. And I do know that some people would actually like to ban alcohol altogether from the main road, and there are alcohol bans at certain times. So with this parklet, not only are they going to be on the footpath, they're going to be on the road, because it does occupy road space. And so I don't know if for the alcohol rules or sensibilities whether we should actually allow that, because people will be going back and forward across the footpath where people are walking through with their alcohol, just like Whakatane Hotel does. But I would not like to see our whole Strand business area full of parklets for different things. It would be quite...
Councillor, if we could just keep the question to questions of clarification. We are
So
not in debate.
by having alcohol on the parklets, does that go against the alcohol ban when they're put on, or things like that?
No, so all the normal liquor licensing rules will apply. If there's a liquor ban, that will still apply. Whatever their licence requirements are, they will have to meet them, whether it's in the parklet or their premise. And in terms of the road, it is like they can't spill straight from the parklet onto the road. It is fenced off, so they are directed back to the footpath like all the other patrons.
Councillor Boynton.
Thank you. Just following on from Councillor Dennis, are you aware of the other parklets that may have an alcohol licence currently at the moment?
Sorry, no, I don't really get too much involved in the liquor licensing side of things. I can find out from our licensing team and come back to you if that's of interest, or I'm not sure if Mr. Bewley might know.
Oh, no, thank you. It's just that I have noticed for some of the parklets, they do have a licence, they do sell alcohol, and that patrons have been seen in those other parklets eating their food with alcohol. But if you can find out and confirm, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, councillors, I think we've had a pretty good go at questions of clarification. Can I move to the recommendations? Just reading through the recommendation 1, that the Projects and Services Committee receive the amendments to the Parking Restrictions, Prohibitions and Limitations Report. And number 2, that the Projects and Services Committee approve the following parking amendments, including the need for the amendments to be publicly notified as set out in Appendix 1, Register of Parking Restrictions, Prohibitions and Limitations Schedule of Amendments, February 2026. And recommendation 3, that the Projects and Services Committee notes that following public notification, and once the parking amendments are in place, the Parking Restrictions, Prohibitions and Limitations Register will be updated to reflect these changes. Can I have a mover? Councillor James. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Hamill. Debate. Any debate? If there be no debate, I'll put those recommendations as I read, 1 through to 3. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, councillors. Okay, moving on to item 6.2, the event road closures, Matata Bike Week, HMNZS Mātātua, Charter Parade and the Light Up Whakatane. Now these on page 23 from memory. So again, same presenters. Excellent. Wendy, would you like to add anything to that report?
Yes, the purpose of this report is to request the approval for the 3 temporary road closures for these events. I take the report as read, but just to quickly highlight some key points from the report. So the first one being the Marata Bike Week. It is a 3-day temporary road closure request on Arawa Street from Walbrook Terrace to Division Street. And that's running from the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 9th, 10th and 11th of April. We have the first public notification going into the Beacon next Wednesday. That's open for submissions, and that submission period is a 2-week period where members of the public can put a submission in for the support of the event or for non-support of the event. So those submissions, we take all of those into account, and if we receive anything significant which requires a further council report, we'll bring that to council. The parking for the motorbikes is allocated within the temporary road closure, and extra parking is available for attendees at St Joseph's School and also adjacent to the school land. The event organisers recently held a community meeting for members of the public to attend and also the local businesses. Our second request is for the HMNZS Matatoa Charter Parade. This is a rolling road closure on the Thursday, the 23rd of April. This is a ceremonial parade with 100 Navy personnel and a Navy band in attendance. And this is a rolling closure that starts at Mātātua Reserve, runs through to Mahi Court, and will take approximately 20 minutes. And our third request is for our annual Trust Horizon Light Up Whakatane Parade. Again, this is a rolling road closure, significantly successful, and this is occurring on Saturday the 11th of July. If the weather is not playing its game, we will hold that on the Sunday. So this is run via our wonderful events team, and it's a parade that starts from Kakahora Drive, runs through the Strand, goes back to the car park via Whararangi or the Gap. So I now pass the report back to the chair and happy for any part-time.
Thank you, Wendy. Okay, councillors, open for questions of clarification. Councillor Boynton.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I just had a question. When the proposal was put forward, did they come forward with any kind of alternative in case this was not approved? Did they have any other alternative plans where they could have the event?
Are we, just to clarify, Councillor Boynton, are we talking about the...
Sorry, this is for the Matata Bike Week. 4.1.
They have provided no other alternative at this stage.
Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Jukes.
Thank you, Chair. Just in regards to event 3, do we have the time yet for that?
I believe the time is still to be confirmed in that event's just a little way out in July, but we were just wanting to put it in this report.
So is it more morning, afternoon or evening?
I believe the parade's usually in the evening.
And I really support the options for the rolling road closures. They seem to work really well. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, just ask councillors, can you hear me at the back? Okay, well, if councillors could follow suit, please, and kindly speak a little bit closer to the microphone, bearing in mind that we are utilising the entire space. Thank you. Any further questions of clarification? Oh, sorry.
Can everybody hear me better now? Thank you. Move the mic. Just in regards to the event number 1, I believe that the businesses within that road closed area are actually in support of having the road closed in Matata. Is that correct?
I believe the community meeting that they held was, the general consensus of that meeting was very in support of the event, correct?
So just to follow on from that comment, you're saying that businesses had been communicated and they were happy to support the event, that it wasn't going to impact their business?
Yes, I believe that the community meeting that they held, there were attendees from businesses that attended, and they had an open platform to ask questions of concern, and the general consensus at the end of the meeting was the majority of the people that attended were in support. But this is why we have also submissions
Yes.
and public notification, so that people can put their concerns in, and we do look at every submission that comes in, whether it's in support or not support, and that again goes back to our management and goes back to our council and exec team too.
Duly noted, but that consultation period is quite a tight time frame, isn't it, in relation to the event? Okay, thank you. Mayor Tanchos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on the Matata Bike Week, so obviously there'll be some kind of traffic management plan which will divert traffic around the closed area, and this will go up behind and then come back to the road by the lagoon down Division Street. Is that the plan? So it's a fairly minor detour, and it seems like the only businesses that really would be affected would be the pub and the coffee cart, really, which will both probably do extremely well out of the event. So it's hard to see that there's any significant disruption. It's a temporary diversion around the pub, really. So, yeah, I think it looks good myself.
Okay, Councillor Boynton.
Yes, it says in the report that the NZTA has been contacted, but they're still yet to respond. Do you think that it's likely that they, as part of our consulting with them, is that just all that's needed, or do we actually need them to say yes because it's a state highway?
Through the chair, it is a local road, so it's our council road. The legislation just requires us to consult with NZTA. It doesn't require a response from them. We do every time consult with them for these temporary road closures, but we often don't always get a response. But generally, if they have any concerns, they do bring it to our attention. So I wouldn't see any major issues on their part, and particularly the traffic management plan and the detour route where it will have an impact on the state highway, they'll be able to comment on that because they'll have to approve that traffic management plan as well.
Okay, any further questions of clarification, councillors? No? Okay, let's go back to the recommendations then. And the recommendations are: 1, that the Projects and Services Committee receives the report titled Event Road Closures, Bike Week Event, HMNZS Tapuwae Charter Parade and the Light Up Whakatane, and 2, that the Projects and Services Committee recommend to the Whakatane District Council to approve the temporary road closures for the events detailed below. Okay, and they've already been indicated. The event number 1 is the Matua Bike Week. Event number 2 is the HMNZS Tapuwae Charter Parade, and event 3, Trust Horizon Light Up Whakatane. Moved, Councillor O'Brien. Seconded, Councillor Hamill. Any debate? Mayor Tanchos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a contribution. Just to say that I'm really happy to see council supporting these temporary road closures. I think they're 3 really great events. The Light Up Festival is a fantastic event for our town. So it's amazing. It gets the community out. People get out and participate. A lot of shops and things take part in 2 displays. It's a really wonderful event. Builds our community. So that's fantastic. The HMNZS Matataua Parade celebrates a historical or beginning of a historical relationship, 10 years, freedom of the district charter, and that's a wonderful thing to celebrate, and I'm sure our community will really love to see that come through our town. And the Matata Bike Week is a new event, and it just looks fantastic, raising money for the Matata Volunteer Emergency Services. I know they've got plans, if there's any money left over, to spend other money into the Matata community, and I think that's a great initiative, and it's wonderful to see people just having the initiative to start these kind of events, which are so beneficial. So, yeah, I'm really pleased to support this.
I'd certainly concur with those comments by the Mayor. I mean, it is great to see this sort of entertainment coming into Whakatane district, or across the district, not only in central Whakatane. But again, the lights display last year was something fantastic, and, you know, the crowds that we saw through the streets was something else. So it reminded me of possibly being in Auckland again. But anyway, thank you. Councillor Boynton.
Just a contribution similar to Mayor Tanchell's, just to really acknowledge each of those communities and those groups, because you know, there is quite hard times within our communities and with our families and different organisations, and so for us to be able to support these things, to continue and be shown to support that, and allow that and allow our communities to attend and be part of these particular events is really a great thing. And acknowledge, of course, Light Up Pakatane, which has grown over the years and has quite a significant reputation that our families look forward to. And a mihi to the Matata community, you know, always backing whatever happens there, and especially with the fire services, and just wishing all the best for the fundraising that's going to happen. So, kia ora koutou.
Okay, any further debate? Okay, I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, and carried. Thank you, councillors. Okay, moving on now to item 6.3, the request for an easement by Horizon Network for the cabling works, Colony Place Reserve in Edgecumbe. And the report is on, or starts on page 31. To the table we have Kayla and Ian Maloney. So, Kayla, are you going to speak to this report? Thank you. Welcome to the table.
There we go.
And, yeah, thank you. Floor is yours.
Morena, my name is Kayla. I'm the Reserves Planner for Whakatane District Council. The report I'm presenting to you is in regards to Horizon Networks applying to have an easement registered on the record of title for underground electrical cables to be laid in the Colony Place Reserve in Edgecumbe. The purpose of these cables is to support Fonterra with electricity to power the factory instead of relying on gas. This is an important climate change initiative and aligns with Council's climate pathway. I'll take the report as read and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla. Questions of clarification? Councillor Dennis?
In regard to the map, where you see the wires going across that reserve, why aren't they going right close to the fence line? Why are they going across the middle of the reserve? I would have thought that it would be more feasible to go right against the fence line rather than through the middle, or part of the middle.
I didn't question that. I'm guessing they wanted a setback because it requires some earthworks from the neighbouring boundary.
Will there be a supplementary, please? Okay. Will there be a signage there for people not to penetrate the surface if those are underneath, and how deep are they going to be?
They should be around a metre deep. There won't be any signs for the public not to dig, but that's just general for reserves not to dig. The temporary works will just be directional drilling in and out of reserve from either side where the cables are being laid.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Ramick.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Good morning. Hi, Kayla and Ian. Just with Horizon paying a one-off fee of $4,500, like considering that's going across a public reserve, why do they not have an annual land lease like many of our other assets require?
Excuse me, through you, Mr Chair. there's no policy around administering these easements. So what we have done is we've actually worked on the basis of previous easements which have been issued, and that they all, allow for a one-off charge. So that's the reason we've done that as well.
Yeah, but this is a commercial company. It's not, something for ourselves to have easements and access along residential properties. There's no differentiation?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think this isn't the only case where we would have commercial companies having, underground services and that through our reserves. And, Horizon Energy, for example, they have cables through many of our reserves, and they do not pay an annual fee either.
Okay, and just an additional question. So has that reserve ever been targeted or talked about for additional housing? Because if this goes ahead, then it eliminates that possibility, doesn't it?
It doesn't eliminate it entirely. There is the remainder of the reserve, but there's been no plans for development on this reserve.
Okay, and I think it goes across to Councillor Dennis's thing, is that if there was going to be a development in the future, then having it as close to the fence line as possible seems to make more sense. Is it out of the realm to suggest that, or has it got something to do with the cabling that's already there?
We could suggest that, but the way I understand it is that they've obviously designed it, according to the route that they need to take. It's in line with the cabling that comes straight off Contd Place Reserve. We would have to query that with them as to the reason, whether they could actually move it closer or not.
And in addition to that, they have a very tight timeline. I believe they've started the work elsewhere for this cable to be laid, not through this reserve, but they wanted the cables to be live by June, so that might set back their time frame.
All right, one more if you mind.
Go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I noticed that on page 34, terms of approval C, neighbours, residents will be advised in advance of the works. So are we not under any responsibility to advise them before decision gets made? Like, is there anything that the neighbours might bring up?
Thank you. This doesn't require public notification, from what I understand is Section 48 of the Reserves Act. The notification that we're going to put out to the neighbours, as far as I understand, would be a letter drop about access to the reserve and making sure they don't go in the works area during the temporary works.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Brien.
I'm interested in where we get the 50% of the easement value of the land. That's $4,500. Why not $9,000 for the total amount of the easement? Where'd you come up with 50%?
That's a good question. 50% of the value of the easement is just what council has done for other projects when I asked around the other teams. However, you have the discretion to request whatever payment compensation you'd like as part of this meeting.
If I may, Mr. Chair, supplementary to that is, we haven't had any interest in the past. We're not going to have any public notification, possibly. What if the neighbours wanted to, in the future, extend into that space and place and offer to pay a good revenue for us to receive as council, but they won't be able to do that in the future for $4,500.
Sorry, do you mean for housing or to
housing.
develop the reserve?
Yep.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the reserve is classified as a recreation reserve, so there would be a huge, long process to go through to change that designation, that reserve, to actually allow that to happen. So I don't see that actually happening personally.
Yeah, just to add to that, reserves are designated as reserves, so there isn't development on them, so that they are retained as a public space, and the process to revoke a reserve is lengthy, costly, and is in some ways intended as a deterrent to not change the reserve into a development space. So I don't. there aren't any existing plans for any sort of recreational development on the site. That was something we talked about at the executive team. The lines are going underground, and they seem to be connecting to 2 points, and it would be very unlikely that there would be private development on a reserve just because of the status of the reserve, the designation.
Right, thank you. Just one more question. What are we using that reserve for currently? Is the Joe Public using that reserve at all? I mean, we're maintaining it. Is it being utilised?
It's just a neighbourhood reserve. There are no assets on it, so it's just the local community that actually utilise it for whatever purpose, walking dogs or, kids playing on it.
No, thank you.
Okay, any further questions of clarification? Councillor Remick?
Yeah, thank you. Following on for Councillor O'Brien's about the 4,500. So you indicated that we could ask what we would like. So if we wanted to double it to 100%, would that be received okay? Because they still need to proceed, don't they?
That's right, you can request. We would have to obviously go back to Horizon Networks and see if they'd be okay with paying that charge. But I have talked to them before this meeting about how you can choose to pick whatever one-off compensation you'd like. And so they're waiting to hear the outcome of this meeting to see what you'll request.
Councillor Boynton? Okay, any further questions of Councillor Dennis?
I noticed in the report it says that the park, when they talked about the disruption while they do the work, that the park is not very well utilised. In fact, it would assume like it's not very utilised at all. In regard to that, I see the benefit of that we could actually use it for housing one day, because there's not many other places in Edgecumbe. So I come back to that, of the fact that how hard would it be that to rezone it back to residential if we wanted to subdivide it? And if that was the case, I go back to my original point that if we pass this, it should be passed subject to Horizons being asked if they could move it up against the fence line for future benefit. Would that be a possibility?
Could I just make a quick comment on that?
About the reserve status would be helpful.
Oh, no, just about using it for housing. Is that if council was to go through a process to look at what reserves it has and which ones would be suitable for housing, you'd probably be prioritising those open spaces that have services attached to them, so that's wastewater and water supply. Okay. And also you'd be looking at your growth strategy and where your district plan is heading towards growth zones, and I don't believe that that is currently in the growth strategy, which is about to be consulted on that area. So it's not a potential growth area anyway.
I just didn't want to do something now that might inhibit us
that
in the
might
future.
inhibit in the future.
Might be a good idea. It would always be of benefit to see if they could shift it closer, which would give more room.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it is worth remembering too that this is not the only open space which has critical infrastructure running through it. There are a few open spaces, I think Ian alluded to that. And it is quite common, but if in the long-term future there is some change, development there is an opportunity for, if there's some growth around that area, to maybe look at putting buildings on the reserve for, say, a croquet club or something like that, then it's possibly going to inhibit where that building might be located. I believe, though, you can still have play sports over the top of that area. It's just actually drilling down into that area and putting, say, things like piles. But there is other infrastructure running through our other open spaces.
Okay, Councillor James.
This particular piece of area, it is a bit prone to flooding, isn't it? It flooded in 2004, is that correct?
That's correct, Councillor.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we've had plenty of clarification there, so let's, Mayor Tanchos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, so will they be also needing easements through other private properties? Because, will they be needing easements to those other private properties that are indicated on the diagram? I'm just trying to find it.
It looks like it's down the road.
On page 45, does that go through, does the rest of that line go through private property? That's my question, that they will need easements for.
It looks from this, through Mr Chair, that it goes through Kiwi Rail
I see.
corridor and then
Oh,
also
yeah.
State Highway corridor as well.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay, councillors, if there's no further questions of clarification, I'd like to put the recommendations. I'll go through them. Number 1, that the Projects and Services Committee receive the report, request for easement, Horizon Networks Cabling Works, Cornini Place Reserve, Edgecumbe. Number 2, that the Projects and Services Committee recommend the Council approve the registration of an easement on the record of title for this activity in accordance with Section 48(1) of the Reserves Act 1977, subject to conditions. And 3, that the Projects and Services Committee note that in accordance with Section 48(2) of the Reserves Act 1977, this activity does not require public notification. And 4, that the Projects and Services Committee recommend the Council delegate authority to the General Manager of Community Experience to sign all documents related to this approval process. And 5, that the Projects and Services Committee recommend the Council agree to a one-off payment to be made by the applicant for the easement. Do I have a mover? Councillor James, a seconder. Councillor Remick. Any further debate? Councillor Remick.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Yeah, I would just like to make an addition to option 5 that we request 100% one-off payment of $9,000 rather than the 50%.
Mayor Tanchos.
Thank you. I did intend to speak to this thing because I think that that Councillor Emmink raised an important question. I note that the resolution that we're making doesn't specify an amount, so perhaps it's by way of an instruction to look at that. And it does seem to me, because what I've heard is that the basis for setting that amount is kind of what we've done in the past, and it's hard to see what the kind of rational basis for coming to that in the first, where that stemmed from. So I think I would definitely like to see staff kind of reconsider that and think about what is the formula that we use to come to these kind of figures.
Councillor Boynton.
Just following on the same lines
So
as...
I think I would definitely like to see staff kind of...
Echo.
How does he do that without opening his mouth?
Sorry, Councillor Boynton.
Just in support, really, of re-looking at the way that we, I guess, receive payment for these types of activities, and whether or not that could include an investigation into whether or not we have an annual fee of some type as part of the lease agreement for the use of that whenua. Thank you.
Okay, is there any further debate on this? Sorry, Deputy Mayor Jukes.
I'd actually like to second Councillor Emmik's proposal that we make that 9,000.
Again, Mayor Tantros has sort of indicated that staff could follow that up.
I just think we need it in it.
You wanted...
I just think we need it in the
You would like it
recommendation.
stated?
Yeah.
At the moment, it just says one payment.
Yes.
You want to be specific about it.
Mm.
You move it a seconder, and then you make it very clear, or you leave it to staff based on that recommendation.
Okay, so are you happy not to leave it with staff? You would like to see it added that the one-off payment be stated as 9,000?
Yes, I would, because otherwise they'll just come back and say 750, you know. We
Okay.
don't want it to be a negotiation. This is the fee.
All right, you're happy to move that amendment?
Yes?
Okay, and it's been seconded by Deputy Mayor Dukes, correct?
It's not an amendment, it's just an addition.
Well, in
Yeah.
addition to that resolution, so you're quite happy that that be added. Okay, is council all in agreement with that? All those in favour?
I'd just like to talk to that if I can.
Go for it.
I mean, I'd be happy with $9,000 at least, but if we have faith in our kaimai, you might be able to get more. So why would we restrict ourselves at $9,000? One of payment, yes, at least $9,000.
Right. Going into a bidding war. Okay, so on those grounds, council are happy to accept those recommendations? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against and carried. Okay, thank you, councillors. Look, it's 9:56. We're going to adjourn now for a 10-minute I'm sorry, it's going to be a long item, and I think it's only fair that we take the break now rather than break through the... I'm sorry. How do councillors feel?
I think just carry on.
Carry on.
Carry on.
Carry on? Okay. We'll meet your requirements. So let's go then. Correct. We'll have to observe standing orders, so we can only go for so long before we must break. So again, yes, 11 o'clock will be determined to take a break anyway. So anyway, moving on, we will then move to the report. And this is the Tapuwae Toi Walkway Reinstatement Options Report, and the report is on pages, or we go to page 56, sorry. All right, I'm getting there. Alex, if you would like to speak to the report, please, at this stage.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou. Good morning, and I acknowledge the members of the public who are here today. I think joining us shortly online we will have David Milner from Tonkin and Taylor, who may be able to respond to any questions relating to the quantitative landslide risk assessment. The Ngā Tapuwae o Toi Walkway Options report is presented to you today to outline the key information required to determine the future of the west end to o Tapuwae section of the track. Staff recognise the significance of this walkway to many in the community, and we acknowledge the strong interest and sentiment that surrounds its future. As you are aware, the report is supported by a substantial body of technical information. The reports help us understand the stability of the Ohopi escarpment and the long-term implications for any track on this location. These investigations identify a long history of landslides on this section of the escarpment, with at least 49 events over the past 70 years, and conclude that the area remains at very high risk of future instability, particularly as intense rainfall becomes more frequent with a changing climate. What the assessments show is that even with significant engineering solutions, soil nails, rock mesh, cantilevered boardwalks, etc., the likelihood of future slips remains high, and with that comes high future reinstatement costs, potential for track damage, and a continued risk profile that we must take seriously. I recognise the tension here and the balance that is required between technical evidence, community sentiment, financial implications, and long-term stewardship of this important place. Today there are 4 options before you. Option 1 is reinstate the existing track with major engineering works. Option 2, do not fund reinstatement and seek fully funded proposals from the community. Option 3, permanently close the section between West End and o Tapuwae. And option 4, which is the staff recommended option, do not reinstate this section, but instead investigate alternative routes that avoid the unstable escarpment entirely and reconnect the full loop. Option 4 acknowledges both the community's desire for a functioning loop track and the geotechnical reality that the escarpment itself poses a long-term challenge. It provides a direction toward a safer, more resilient solution, one that could also support aspirations with Ngāti Awa and the Department of Conservation to develop Ngā Tapuwae or Toi into an official short walks and day hikes track, raising its profile nationally. We'll now take the paper as read and respond to any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. At this stage, I'd just like to welcome David Milner, who will hopefully be able to assist in any technical questions that we may need to be answered at some stage. Thank you, David. Okay, councillors, asking for questions of clarification. Councillor Boynton.
Does our council have their own annual individual fatality risk measurement?
I think it's a standard as opposed to something that the council has itself. It's a known standard between Department of Conservation and GNS that establishes the framework for identifying risk.
Other councils such as Auckland, Tauranga, Christchurch have set annual individual fatality risks. So we don't have our own set?
Well, as in the report, I think it notes it's the Department of Conservation and GNS national standard that is used, that we've used for this report.
So we use that just to analyse this particular situation as it arises, but we don't have one that's set for ourselves that we use beforehand before we enter into different projects?
No.
David, would you like to add to that comment?
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't a standard that was typically used when we did the report, and so we used the ones that Doc had done a recent one that we had used elsewhere for places like the Cathedral Cove walk, which seemed appropriate for this case, and Regional Council has its own risk assessment as well, but doesn't pertain particularly to walkways like this. So we talked it through with Whakatane District and considered that the DOC one was probably appropriate in this case.
Thank you, David. Councillor Amick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Alex, and the public. Generally, when we have got community issues coming up, staff do investigations, they go out to a consultant, and then they come to council with a workshop or briefing so that all the technical reports can be fully explained to us. So why have we not had a workshop on this prior to having to make a decision?
You want to respond to the Chief Executive?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. There was perceived to be an urgency around getting this decision in front of council. Certainly from the community, there was urgency and a wish to have a decision made by council. So we decided to prepare the paper once the Tonkin Taylor report had finally come in. We hadn't considered delaying the decision-making process by having an additional step of a workshop. On reflection, and it's always easier to look back at these things, once that final report came in, it was quite technical, and probably having a workshop would have been helpful, but the thing to balance up there is whether or not the community would have been happy with a further delay to a decision on the track.
Just an additional comment to that, so there's been 6 technical reports, a review of the reports. There's been a community presentation in December, and it just seems like we're not following our own process, and I'm sure the community would have preferred councillors be totally informed on all the technical aspects and the risks before we got to here. So why were councillors not asked about what we would like before the decision to be included in this report occurred?
Well, we had been discussing, not with full council, but with some council members, about the urgency around getting this report in front of council. I don't think the idea of having a workshop really surfaced until that final Tonkin Taylor report had come in, but we'd already put it into the process for it to come straight through to council. However, you could propose to your colleagues and discuss and debate whether or not it actually would be prudent for council to take stock of the reports and actually have a workshop before making a final decision. That's perfectly fine.
Thank you. Councillor James.
Yeah, thanks for this. A lot of reading in there, but I see on page 65, the risk to the public is 1 to 16 million, ranging up to 1.5 billion. I would have thought just about everything that council owns has got greater risks than that. So how much importance do we need to be putting on that fact? To me, it's not a great risk. There's risk everywhere. So.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the risk identified for the section of the track, or both sections that have been had slips through them. The totality of the track, there are different risk numbers, I guess. For example, 1 and 6 have a high risk. The reinstatement sections, if they were repaired to the standard that would be required, that would be the risk outcome.
Supplementary. So, well, tell me, what is greater risk? This track or the escarpment up behind the houses at West End, where we know we do have landslides and we do know that we've had fatalities recently? So where's the greater risk? Should we be more worried about that escarpment or this track?
Well, I think, yeah, risk is something that we take very seriously in terms of what we're doing with escarpment assessments, particularly in light of recent events. This risk framework has been used specifically for the walking track in the way it's been assessed.
David, Tonkin Taylor again. Would you like to just comment on those questions?
I'll just quickly chime in that the probabilities are shown on that page 65. I need to check those numbers because I don't seem to tally the same with the numbers that we provided. And I guess that's the annualised individual fatality risk. There's also a property risk as well. So if you sort of put the track back and it falls down, there's like repair works and things like that. So there's a monetary value to that. So I think the ones that are quoted on page 65 are a lot lower than the ones that we had estimated. Although, the ones that we estimated are still on the order of, 1 and 1.5 million or something like that. But I just need to check those numbers, so I just caution those ones. But yes, and just to remind that there's a property risk too. So if you put the track back and it falls down, there's repair cost that would probably be ongoing.
Thank you. We'll go first with Deputy Mayor Dukes, then Mayor Tanchos.
Thank you. Just in regards to Route 2, and I do apologise because I'm not very good at scale and gradients and all of that, but looking at this, it does appear to me that the staircase either side of it's actually going to be quite steep. So I guess my question is, if we did go down that option, would that then mean that a lot of people may not actually be able to use the track because of lack of physical, ability to use a track, either the stair or whatever that would be that steep?
I think a reasonable amount of physical ability is required for any of the options. Yes, that would be a staircase that would go up the slope face, which, as you know, that escarpment is very steep. So, that would be a reasonable expectation.
Okay, Mayor Tanchos.
Thank you. I have quite a few questions, with your permission. First of all, I want to thank you for, I think, a really good report, which lays out really clearly the issues in front of us and the options that we have. I know some members of the public don't agree with the staff recommendation, and that's fine, and that's up to us to decide what recommendation or what option we choose to pursue as councillors. But I think that the information you've provided has been really helpful and comprehensive, and so I thank you for that. It is quite technical, and so I just need to clarify a few things in my own head as we work through. The first one is, the way I've read it overall is that there's a low risk to life, but a high risk to property damage, that property being the track infrastructure and things like that, in either of whether we reinstate what was there or whether we take an alternative path. That's correct?
Yeah.
And the way I read it, that the low risk to life on both options relies on quite a lot of work, though, in terms of mesh and anchors and things like that. So the low risk to life is predicated on quite a lot of work to secure those surfaces.
Yes, yeah, that is, the risk profile is post-appropriate works, which would be significant engineering.
Okay, and the report talks about that that those kind of works would have a high visual and cultural impact. And we saw some photos. It's not the prettiest view. Have we had indication from Ngāti Awa in terms of cultural impacts and how that would be viewed?
There has been involvement. We have engaged with Te Runga o Ngāti Awa and a representative of Ngāti Hokupu, as directed by Te Runga, and that alternate route has been, I guess, floated as an idea, and there is, in principle, a reasonable expectation that that might be acceptable if it got to the next stage.
I'm specifically meaning in terms of the kind of the mesh works and those kinds of things.
No, that hasn't.
Okay, because that's quite a key point. That I'm trying to imagine what that would look like. It could be quite ugly from the ground and from the track itself. Okay, thank you for that. In terms of the low risk to life, it talks about, because of the category, the appropriate response is to reduce as low as practically possible. What does that mean? So in terms of say we reinstated and then our obligation was to reduce risk as low as possible, what would that entail?
I think that's laid out in the options in terms of what would be required as per engineering advice with the rock anchors, soil nails, the mesh, etc.
Right.
And that maintains our requirement to do what is reasonably practicable, which has a monetary value to that too, in terms of what's reasonably practical.
So what's reasonably practical is we're probably seeing it as engineering works to stabilise and that kind of thing. Would it also include some of the behavioural, like closing the track at dangerous times and things like that? That would be part of it as well, I guess.
Well, and that's I guess a challenge in itself, because whilst it's more susceptible after rainfall, slips can occur well after rainfall.
Yeah. Well, we saw that at Herepuru. It was quite a while after the rain had stopped, and the sun was shining, and we got a.
It was more than a week later. Yeah.
Yeah. The photos are quite dramatic when you see some of those slopes where it has slipped. It's taken the whole thing away. It's just a flat cliff face now. It's quite significant. Okay, thank you for that. In terms of the kind of risk, I was interested in this thing, figure 9, it's got this level of risk reduction response table thing. And I was trying to get my head around what it meant. So I know we're dealing with low risk here, but it talks about high risk and the response would be closure. And some of those are things that we do accept, like high altitude climbing, remote tramping and things like that. I was just kind of interested in, and recognising that we've got particular obligations as a council, but as a nation, we kind of accept a whole lot of quite high risk behaviour. How does that tie in with this kind of management regime?
Well, I think that's, a risk tolerance is what we talk about. What is the acceptable risk that we would suggest is doing what we need to be doing to keep people and property safe.
I wonder if, for example, talk about high altitude climbing, maybe it's harder to pin liability on someone if someone goes for a walk in the snow, whereas with this it's more directly, the accountability is more direct, I suppose. That might be part of the issue, right? Thank you. So we've got a low risk to life based on some engineering works. What we have is a high risk to property, which, and I suppose one of the questions as council that we're grappling with is if we were to reinstate the track, we know that slips are occurring all the time. We know that that's going to increase, and I mean, I think even Angus's op-ed in the paper talks about that. The slips just happen all the time, and they will happen all the time. They have happened all the time. And so part of the thing is if we reinstate the cost of just having to do this continually, time and time again, right? So that's part of our consideration. The report talks about seeps, because I think it was during the public meeting, there was some commentary around that part of the problem was that the tracks were being inadequately maintained in terms of water drainage and things like that. But it seems from the report, that there's seeps coming right out of the face of the cliff, and that is making the whole place unstable. Is that right?
Yeah, it's probably a bit more of a geotechnical question, but I think that's correct.
Yeah, it has been identified in one of the geotechnical reports, as you mentioned, that there's seepage, coming from the top and different across different layers.
I'm sorry, can you please speak to the microphone?
Apologies. Excuse me. One of the geotech reports did allude to that and did actually identify that there was seepage coming out, into actually into slip one, that first slip face as well, at various points.
Thank you. David, did you have any comment on that?
Thank you. That was my question.
Yeah, I mean, the beds down there, so the geology there, you've got grey wacky at the lower level, which you'd probably see around some of the shore platforms and things like that. And above that, you have the ohope beds, which are a bit more layered, and they have layers of gravel and sand and silt. So some of those are a bit more porous than others, and you get water flow along them. In general, if you've got higher rainfall, then you'll get some response in those layers, and you might have higher seepages. The seepage is reducing the water table it's draining the water table in the slope, but over time, particularly with elevated rainfall, that can build up and you can end up with some larger landslides. But I'm not surprised that there are seeps coming out of those faces, given the layering that we know is present in the geology there.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I just had one other question, if I may.
Go for it.
So I know I've used up a fair amount of time, but just trying to work through all these different issues. The potential for an official short walk, is it? I mean, that's a great thing. It would be a great attractor for our community. We know we need to. It'll be helpful if we could offer more kind of tourism offerings. It would be a destination. It would be a huge attraction. So enormous benefit there. In terms of doing that, obviously we can't do that if we close the track. But is the opportunity the same whether we reinstated or whether we took the round the top route? So that's still, that option is available to us.
Yeah, and to clarify, the staff recommended option is not necessarily the alternate route up the cliff face.
Right.
It's whether there is an alternate route that can be taken from Kohi Point back through
I see.
around perhaps or on top of the escarpment, which we haven't done any investigations at this stage, but there might be other ways of reconnecting to the full Ngā Tapuwae or Toi loop track, which maintains its integrity as a loop.
Okay.
And we're aware that we have things like Toy's Challenge where we have to have traffic management now for crossing the road, etc. So there's options that we're yet to explore if that was if the committee decided to take the staff recommended option.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dennis, to be followed by Councillor Hamill, then Councillor James.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few concerns, and it will lead into a question, Mr. Chairman. This thing does say in the report a number of the investigations came back saying it was low risk. And so another one in the reports, there are a couple of reports said it was really hard to drill into. They actually couldn't drill into the face when they did their test drills. So that sounds to me like the geology is quite hard. So why are we at the stage where we are saying that it's too risky for us to redo? And obviously there's a lot of technical data in there, a lot of formulae and all that sort of stuff, and I will admit I only went to school to eat my lunch, but maybe if we'd had a workshop beforehand that would have helped. But for my ability to read through all that, and I had to read it 2 times, the formula don't make sense to me, and I just have to go on the fact picking out of there. Every report said low risk. Tompkin and Taylor's one, in that picture they had of the graph from side to side, around about page 151, I think it was, they said it was low risk. And I look at, say, Matata Straits, every time it rains you drop a pohutukawa tree on the road with the risk of squashing cars or cars running into it. I would have thought that would have had more risk, and yet we still aren't doing it. So how do you balance that figure out and saying that there's too much risk for us as a council to do it?
I think it might be good to defer to David in terms of the quantitative landslide risk assessment report that was done, just to explain that the risk profiles depend on work being done in a certain manner as well, and the totality of the track has different risk profiles if you break it into the sections that have been identified in that report. But David, you might want to add to that.
I'm just quickly trying to find the figure that you're referring to. But yeah, I mean, when we did the quantitative landslide risk assessment, that was for the annualised fatality risk, and that did come up in that low region, and you do work sort of practicable to improve that risk. In terms of the property side, there was a cost implication with that. So you've got these fixed assets that are sitting there. You might put the track back where it was, and it's almost certain it'll get hit by another landslide at some point, and you'll have to put more dollars into fixing it up or repairing the tracks. There's an ongoing cost with that. So there's two sides to that, or 2 ends to that risk. So one is the risk to life, and one is the risk to property. And so the risk to life, that sort of fell within that low or acceptable if you do some extra work under the DOC guidelines. And then the property one, which sort of doesn't fall under the DOC guidelines, is more of a cost implication that would be sort of ongoing if you put things back. In terms of your comments around the geology there about the people not being able to drill into the rock. So the faces there have a sort of a covering of, they have a sort of a soil build up, and you have trees and putukawas and various other trees growing on the slopes, and you get like a soil builds up over time. That'll slide off and expose the rock underneath, and for a time period that soil takes a while to build up. You can get sort of smaller rock falls off those faces, but there are sections along that track where the land hasn't moved, and you might suspect that at some time in the future it will, as that soil builds up and might become unstable. So that's kind of where that ongoing risk for other parts of the landslide remain as they are. Does that answer the question? So I've jumped back and forth a little bit there, but does that answer the question in relation to where that?
Not with all certainty.
For that risk discussion? Not
with all certainty it doesn't. Of the figure I was referring to is 10.3 on page 200, where the Route 2 and the Route 1 were very, very low risk. So let me go back to the seeps. If you're saying the seeps are a sign of danger, when you see people doing roadworks and they have sheer faces on them, they just belt in a large pipe right into the hill, and that actually causes water to seep out without disturbing the face of it. So if that's good enough for the roads, wouldn't that be good enough for the walkway?
Well, I guess that's not a decision for me, but that's typically what we do. We'd suggest drainage goes into faces and it draws the water table down and does help with stabilisation of slopes. So you would probably have to work out how many of those drains you need to put in, and what kind of effect that would have on the water table, and does that improve things sufficiently?
Thank you. Could I have one more question, please, Mr.
Go
Chairman?
for it, yes.
In regard to some of the options, and this is really a question for the chief executive maybe and the managers, it talks about if we went with option 2, then we would not pay out to do it. We would allow a community group to work together to restore it. Now, if that went ahead and the track slid down, would that not be on the community group to repair any damage done to the track that they'd put in? So I find the comment by David was very well meaning, but to me that wouldn't actually be a risk of repair work on us. Would that?
That's where the volunteers under the Health and Safety at Work Act would be treated as workers. So essentially they would be working for the council and the liability would still remain with senior management between myself and Stephen, the Chief Executive.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hamill is next, followed by Councillor James and then Councillor Boynton. Councillor.
Thanks, Mr Chair. Thank you, and acknowledge the community here in support, and I also like to acknowledge the frustration that this project has taken a while, and thank you for that engagement from the community. And just as a quick preface before my question, I think we need to acknowledge as a council that risk is everywhere, so we need to be quite clear about the risks here, whether we're talking about risk to life and property risk, which are quite separate things. And what I wanted to distinguish between, if we reinstate Route 1, is a low-cost frequent repair option versus a high-cost, less frequent repair option. And I don't know whether we've got enough information here in the report. We haven't had any cost estimates around reinstatement of Route 1 prior to investigating Route 2 to my satisfaction in this report, because we've got the community ready to go and we need to be able to compare costs. That may come, but just have you got any comments on that?
Mr Chairman, through you, we did receive costings for the repair of the first slip we had on the track, and that came in at around about 556,000 just for that solution that they were proposing then. We then had the second slip, and then we started investigating alternative options. So we have not yet actually got any costings any further costings on that.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I was clarifying. That would be good to have some costings after the slip 2 for Route 1, just so that we've got a bit more to base our decisions on. We have a little bit. Sorry.
Let's go for it.
I would like to have seen a little bit more in the report if we had about the economic benefits to the district for Toi's reinstatement, especially if we're going to make a decision to close it. What financial benefit it is as a tourism asset, and it was touched on, but do we have any more data as a council around what it brings in?
I would have to check with our tourism and events team to see if they hold that, or the economic development function. Stephen has a comment.
Okay, I'll leave it there for now, thanks.
Just on that, I do like numbers and in particular economic data and tourism data. I think what you would find, Councillor, is in the data there wasn't a significant change when the first slip occurred to our tourism numbers and spend, which is why the reference to probably minor impact. If the track was reinstated and the track had a Great New Zealand Walks label, then that would probably change that position. There's a few steps to get to that, but actually just as a track, yeah, it's amazing, but it didn't really affect the data very much at the time. Unlike events like Whakaari, you can see the shift in trend lines, and COVID changed the data.
Thank you. Councillor James.
Yeah, we seem to be changing the emphasis from risk to life to risk to property. And to me, the property is a hillside. So when there's damage, it's just soil from further up the hillside is coming down to damage the soil further down, which to me isn't a great. Where's the risk
I think
involved when it's only a bit of dirt covering a bit more dirt? But in the proposal, we're talking about building a staircase and putting a whole lot of walkway, boardwalks and that in, which are actually leaving ourselves wider open for property damage. And I see on page 129 HDGO say that they actually think the staircase is not feasible, and that because it's leaving us open for further damage. So why not just leave the track where it is and that, and clear the dirt away every now and again? It's the cheapest bit of property, isn't it?
I think in respect of the report, property is defined as the track itself, and if there's engineering works to reinstate the track, the cost of those becomes part of the cost of the property, per se. So when we think about that risk to the track or the property, the cost of reinstating or repairing, rebuilding after an additional slip, that's the cost factor that we're talking about in terms of risk to property.
That would include structures as well. So, if you have to construct any structures along that section, that's included in that as well.
Suspended walkways or otherwise.
If we don't have any construction there, then we haven't got any construction to replace, have we?
The track's gone though.
It's a cliff face.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that can be easily remedied without a whole lot of structure. We're starting to get into debate.
We are, very much so. Okay, is it the end of your questioning there, Councillor James?
The question was, why are we going to risk putting infrastructure in there and that when there's a greater risk of losing it in another event?
Okay. All right, Councillor Boynton. Go for it, yes.
Thank you, Chair. The first one is just to clarify, who is the governing administrative body of the land around the track?
It's council owned and it's statutory acknowledgement for Ngāti Awa.
The track itself or the land?
The land and the track is under council ownership and management.
Because under the Ngāti Awa Settlement Deed Act of 2005, it says in section 29.1 or A that council administration is revoked under the 1997 Act, Reserves Act, and that the of E, I think the last one or 6 of that section, it says that the Ngāti Awa is the governing administrative body of Kaputirangi Reserve.
Yeah.
Councillor Boynton, I think that may be referring to Kaputirangi itself, actually Kauri Point, where the car park is at the top. There is a section there which we manage and is.
Okay, because when I did look up to see what full part, and under the settlement itself, it says that the areas go around to O Tapuwae. So if you're looking at the route that is going over the top, isn't that part of that land?
Yes, it will be part of that land, yes.
Okay. So why isn't it clarified in the report? It says there that we've got discussions with Ngāti Awa, but there's no clarification actually of their legal, that they're the legal governors of that particular area.
The section of the track that's pertaining to the report was gazetted, I think, to the council in 1969. But as with statutory acknowledgement, we do everything with Ngāti Awa in terms of engagement and understanding what happens on that land.
Okay, because the settlement deed in section 29A says that the Whakatane District Council's administrative rights are revoked. So I just wanted clarification on that and to understand how our iwi is represented in the reports as people who are having discussions with council and wanting to ensure that we have clarification over who has the actual legal governorship over that area and land. Because if that's not clarified and we're having discussions and we're making decisions today over particular pieces or options that we're having, it would be really good to have that presented in these reports. So I was wanting clarification around that because we're making decisions.
Again, councillor,
thank you.
possibly on that point there, that could be referred back
To
in a subsequent workshop
Yes.
that hopefully will arise from this.
Thank you.
Is there anything further you had?
I just had a question if there had been other options explored around looking at, with the thought of understanding that our community, that people in our community feel quite passionate about having a proposal, whether or not the council had considered some kind of staged response in which there could be some kind of hybrid plan in which a pilot trial could be had around the community being able to have their, if it was to go ahead, if it was to meet the standards, that could be some form of a temporary option or trial, provided that there were safety measures put in place as to whether there was risk around rain and rainfall or slides, that it would be closed off. But if there was a pilot while the other parts of options were being investigated, like having it go over the top. Was there any sort of consideration about options like that?
Can I just clarify whether you mean a pilot for the section of track that we're talking about in the report or on other parts of Tapuwae or Toi track?
A pilot, if a community group was part of fixing that part themselves, would that be an option of having a pilot, of having that work done?
I guess that's represented in the paper itself in terms of accepting community proposals, which would need to meet the requirements that we would expect if we were doing the work ourselves.
Okay. Can I supplementary to that? If we're going to be looking at the community proposals, would it be prudent for the council to have their own assessment of what an annual individual fatality risk would be?
Well, that falls under our due diligence. We would need to be the ones that determined what was acceptable in terms of the risk tolerance.
Okay. I'm just saying, because we don't have one, whether or not it would be good to have one that we can measure and use, so that if we're assessing particular proposals or projects, I'll close it off there, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, we don't have one.
Yeah.
And that discussion is probably not relevant whether or not we have our own measure, which could be then different from the national measures. And I'm not quite sure of the status of those other councils, and just want to highlight that they're quite big councils as well, so they might be able to resource the work required in order to, but we don't have our own, we rely on the national standards being used, and we've relied on the national standards for this paper.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
That's okay. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Boynton. Councillor Omick.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chair. I'm on page 75 about the funding, and I know that we've got the 450 odd thousand from the previous Tourism Infrastructure Fund to help repair and reinstate the track. What is their criteria? And I know that we've already extended our friendship with them, and so far we're still holding with that. What is their criteria to uplift that? So, like, how do we receive that money?
Yeah, Ian's been in contact with MB recently on that.
The expectation is that we have all consents in place prior to the work, and that community engagement has actually taken place as well.
All right,
And it's only once those have been satisfied will they, can we uplift the funding.
All right, just a supplementary if I may. So option 2 recommends that we ask for a request for how to do it. So if it was to go out to a community group, in option 2 at the moment it says there's no, Whakatane District Council will provide no further funding. But if a community group was to be successful with their proposal, we could still pass that through, couldn't we?
I'm currently speaking with NBIE, and I'm just awaiting a response as to whether that funding can be transferred to a community group for this purpose,
All right, thank you.
or for an alternative route as well.
Thank you.
Okay, councillors, I think we've worked out. Oh, you one more?
Thank you for this time. I've got just going back to some more technical question. The geotech reports, after the second slip, I think that was a CMW in the Avalon, didn't seem to indicate that we'd require rock mesh and soil nails if we reinstated Route 1. And then subsequent geotech reports going up Route 2 obviously do say that that's a necessity. And when I read the staff report, it seems to imply that if we go with reinstatement of either route, they'll need further stabilisation, such as rock mesh, and that could be a visual amenity issue, has been indicated by Hapu. Can you clarify that and why it's still preliminary, but must we require these extra stabilisations for Route 1? Is that a technical question for you, Dave?
Yeah, I think there's peer review of each of the reports, which on, when you look at them in their entirety, that's more the recommended way to go in terms of keeping people and property safe.
Okay.
Thank you. David, did you wish to add to that?
I was just going to say that the risk assessment says undertake action to bring it down as low as reasonably practical. Some of those sections of the track I understand are undermined and lost, so you'd have to reinstate portions of the track with a bridge or something like that to make it passable. If you just put back the status quo, and you probably have to have a look at it and say, what can we practically do? And that's kind of a balance of that safety and cost. So there's some suggestions in there, and it might be that you do a minimal amount, but we couldn't tell you just exactly how much that would require. But just noted things like rock bolting and things like that do have a visual amenity issue. But we haven't got an idea just yet about how much you would need.
Okay, thank you. So presumably that's something that there's a range of options, and for the community proposal, it might be helpful for them to provide a range of options too?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mayor Tangos.
Thank you. Just coming back to the funding issue on page 75. So it says the funding from MB may be revoked should the timeframe for the project commencement extend beyond October 25. Is that correct? I thought it must be a typo.
Sorry?
26.
26.
26, yeah, cool.
Apologies.
Sorry, yeah, it is a typo, yep.
Okay, councillors, no further questions of clarification? We're going to go into debate. Have you got another question of clarification? Now's your chance, if you wanted to carry on. Debate. Well, we're at 10:44, but we've got to adjourn at 11 o'clock. Do we want to have that break before we go into debate? I really think we should, because we're not going to get through it in 15 minutes, and we've got to then adjourn in the middle of debate. So it's my recommendation that we stop now for a tea break.
I support that. We certainly don't want to stop in the middle of voting. No. That would be terrible. And it would give us a chance, I think, to take a moment to digest what we've heard. It's quite a big report, a lot of technical stuff. I think a moment to digest might be useful.
Thank you. Okay, so look, we'll adjourn now until 11 a.m. Thank you. Okay, councillors, members of the public, we're about to reconvene. And welcome back to David too from Tonkin and Taylor. Thank you, David. We're about to enter into debate, and it is my intention that we will take the recommendations basically one at a time, all right? So, starting off with recommendation 1, that the Projects and Services Committee receive the Ngā Tapuwae o Toi Walkway Options report. Can I have a mover? Councillor Dennis, Deputy Mayor Dukes. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against and carried. Number 2, that the Projects and Services Committee receive I'm not going to read through those reports. They're all before you, and there is the 6 of them, all right? So the Projects and Services Committee receive the technical reports included in the agenda. Can I have a mover on that one? Councillor Whittaker and Councillor Emick. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. So,
Just to note, I don't know whether WSP is actually a peer review, it's just a high-level review. So, just a comment.
Sorry, I missed that comment.
It just says in F, the WSP is a high-level review. It's not actually a peer review, it's just an overview. So these are two different things.
Right, but it is a report contained within our agenda. Okay. Recommendation 3, that the Projects and Services Committee note the findings of the geotechnical investigations and assessments regarding the geology of the Ohopi Escarpment between West End and Otawairiri Bay, that the Ngāti Tapuwae o Toi Walkway traverses, including the rainfall and landsliding triggers for the escarpment. A mover, Councillor James. Seconded, Councillor Whittaker. Discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Recommendation 4, that the Projects and Services Committee note that reinstatement of the existing Ngā Tapuwae o Toi track between West End and Otawairiri Bay, Route 1, across the faces of the 2 landslides without additional stability works and without suspended walkways being installed is not viable because the risk to life to track users is assessed by HDGO in their Whakatane West, in West End Walkway Staircase Geotechnical Assessment Report, the 3rd of September 2024 as high, and this represents a level of risk to life that is unacceptable. Can we have a mover? Mayor Tanchos, seconder. Councillor O'Brien. Discussion, debate.
I'm a bit interested in that one, is that by saying that unless we put in stability works and suspended walkways, then we won't allow it to happen, basically. What happens if we allow a community group to do something there and they bring up a different option? Apart from the stabilisation, apart from the suspended walkways, what if they want to go below the base of it or along the top of it? It doesn't actually allow any flex in what some other group may say, this is a great idea, this should work. So if we pass that, we're limiting things.
I suspect, and I'll just clarify with Ian and Alex on this, is that statement is saying that if you reinstated the track at the most basic level, which is just digging it into the existing face, so it's just digging it into the face. So without any of those things you just talked about, if you just dug the track into the face, is that right? Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
So that limits what people might be able to do. I don't know if I agree with that, sorry.
No, it's just noting that putting it into the face would be determined, it was determined as a very dangerous place to have the track. Therefore, you wouldn't reinstate it there, which then opens up alternative options.
But it does also say that without additional stability works and without suspended walkways being installed. Mayor Tantros.
Thank you. Just in response to Councillor Dennis, the way I read that resolution is that we're saying to reinstate the existing track across the face of the two landslides without additional stability works is not viable. And so that doesn't preclude other options as I read it. You know, Councillor mentioned potentially other routes that don't go across the faces of those two landslides. Well, that would be a different matter. But it seems to me that it's saying if you're going to reinstate across those two landslides, then additional stability works of some kind are required.
Okay. Councillor Whittaker.
I have a problem with those two words of not viable, because then it just cuts out the community not being able to actually reinstate that track. So I'm going to vote against it.
Sorry. Could I clarify that that's if council were to agree to reinstate the track, that would be the conditions recommended by staff that we use in order to do that. It doesn't alter the other options that are available, but that relates to track reinstatement if that was the decision.
Yeah, the option is saying that if council was to go to the community, it would expect that the proposals would include options like suspended walkways and additional stability works in order to make it safe and reduce that risk to life.
Okay.
Councillor Boynton.
I'm probably still not confident in supporting this recommendation, probably because we do need to have a fuller understanding and the ability to see what would be proposed by the community in full. And I am still worried that it narrows down what the community might be able to put forward, because it's sort of saying, well, yes, you can come along, but not without you doing suspended walkways or securing all these things. So whether or not, we don't know exactly what it is. So I'm still not comfortable in supporting this recommendation.
Okay, Councillor James.
Yeah, can I just ask the staff, because we've got 7 recommendations here and they're all that we note. What's the definition of note?
Exactly that.
Because we're not making a decision on yes or no. Note to me is just, I take notice.
That's what it is. It's just confirmation that you have noted the information in the report, so there is a standing.
It's emphasising key points that the council and the public should be aware of that are in the report.
Councillor Dennis.
Having had that explanation, I am going to agree to this because all it's saying is that from the council's point of view, that if people were just to go in there and just dig a track in the sheer face, then we won't allow that because obviously called landslips. But the way you read it is that unless they do those, it won't be viable. It doesn't say it won't be illegal, it's saying it won't be viable. So it leaves the door open that if someone came in and said, we have something that is equally safe as the suspended walkways, then it means it would be allowed to go ahead. So it does leave a bit of flexibility, doesn't it?
Yes, and the next recommendation talks exactly to that. It says if the works has been done, then the risk profile drops significantly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, councillors, if there's no further debate on recommendation 4, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Do you wish your votes to be recorded against? Okay. Yes. Councillor Hamill and Councillor Boynton, and the resolution is passed. Moving on to number 5, that the Projects and Services Committee note that the annual individual fatality risk from future landslide for the Ngā Tapuwae o Toi Walkway between West End and Otawairiri Bay for the existing track Route 1, if reinstated with significant stability works and suspended walkways, is assessed by Tonkin and Taylor, as assessed, I would imagine it should be, in their June 25 quantitative landslide risk assessment as being in the low category of the Bay of Plenty regional policy statement and in the reduced to as low as reasonably practical, in hieroglyphics, risk level of the Department of Conservation / GNS Science Natural Hazard Risk Assessment Guidance. Can I have a mover on that recommendation 5, please? Councillor Ummick, a seconder, Councillor Dennis. Debate. Is there any debate? There being no debate, I put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against and carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to number 6. That the Projects and Services Committee note that the annual individual fatality risk from future landslide for the Ngā Tapuwae o Toi Walkway between West End and Otawairiri Bay for an alternative track, Route 2 in brackets, including significant stability works and a new rock anchored staircase as assessed by Tonkin and Taylor in their June 2025 quantitative landslide risk assessment as being in the low, in hieroglyphics, category of the Bay of Plenty regional policy statement and in the reduced to as low as reasonably practical, again, in hieroglyphics, risk level of the Department of Conservation / GNS Science Natural Hazard Risk Assessment and Guidance. Can I have a mover? Mayor Tanchos, Deputy Mayor Dukes. Debate. Councillor Dennis.
By agreeing to this recommendation or a note, does that then, which includes the staircase rather than the option of alternative walkway across the face, if we agree with that, does that mean we're signifying that we want to go with the walkway? Because there's nothing in there that says that if an alternative was chosen to do the stair walkway, then blah, blah, blah. It actually talks as if we've agreed to do the staircase rather than the other one. Thank you.
Do you want me to?
Who would like to speak? Hold on. Is there a response to that one first?
Do you want me to go first and you can correct me?
Sure.
Thank you.
It's just noting that there is a very high level risk to property value. So, yeah, it's just highlighting that fact. That's all that statement is actually doing, is noting that there is a very high level risk to property.
If we do the staircase.
Yeah, so if it relates to that particular option, if it were taken, that would be what you would note as a requirement in terms of what you're accepting in risk.
Well, when you say then that the Projects and Service Committee will note that if that option is taken, then the fatality risk, blah, blah, blah.
So that's noting, so you're not agreeing to that option in this recommendation, it's noting that would be associated with the alternate route.
To me, it'd be clearer if you said that the Projects and Service Committee note that if the staircase option is chosen, then the annual individual fatality risk, etc., etc.
Mayor Tanchos.
So, to me, this and these various resolutions that we're debating are simply noting points in the report. So, it is saying that the Route 2 is assessed as low. The Route 1 is assessed, as low. It's just saying that these different routes are assessed. It's not making any indication of preference. That will come when we decide between the options which one we support. Then we'll specifically choose which one we decide to go with.
Thank you. Councillor James?
Yeah, I'm still a little bit perplexed as to why we've got in the recommendations 7 separate notes. And I mean, in all my time on council, I've never seen recommendations noting, and I mean all the info in every one of these so-called notes is part of the report anyway. So what's the relevance of having all these notes in place in our recommendations?
From time to time, staff do put through reports which are noting significant matters, and in this report, I specifically thought it was very important because there were several, was it 6 technical reports attached, that actually the key information out of each of those needs to be brought to the surface and made clear in the recommendations. And as the Mayor said, it's just noting that piece of information, but they are critical pieces of information which should lead to your decision.
Okay, any further debate? Councillor Boynton, this is on 6 again.
Pardon?
Go for it.
Yes. Thank you, Mr Chair. Sort of similar to before, thank you for clarifying that it's just a note. But it also, I'm just wanting to emphasise again about our limited time to be able to have with all of these reports. And so grateful that these notes are being made clear in the recommendations, but also mindful too about us being bound in some way to these notes if we are supporting them, and whether or not that may constrain the proposals put forward by the community group in the future. So I just want clarification that these will not restrict how a community proposal is looked at, these notes.
No, the notes are there just to confirm that the information, as Stephen mentioned, is read and understood, and its interdependencies between the options.
Thank you.
Okay, any further debate on recommendation 6? If not, I put it. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Right, moving on to number 7, that the Projects and Services Committee note that Tonkin and Taylor, in its June 2025 quantitative landslide risk assessment, assign a very high risk level to both Route 1 and Route 2 for landslide risks to property for the Tapuwae Toi Walkway between West End and Otawairi Bay, and that while much of Route 2 is depicted as being moderate risk and consequently would have improved resilience overall, Route 2 remains reliant on Section 1 and Section 6A of the existing track, which are both assigned a very high risk to property rating. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Emick, seconder. Councillor Hamill. Debate. If there be no debate, I put recommendation 7. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against and carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to recommendation 8, that the Projects and Services Committee note the rough order costs and hieroglyphics presented by Tonkin and Taylor in its June 2025 quantitative landslide risk assessment of maintaining public use of the Tapuwae Toi Walkway between West End and Otawairi Bay for Route 1 or Route 2 when future reinstatement work is required, and given the findings of the geotechnical assessments and assessment of landslide risk to property, repeated and potentially costly reinstatement is very likely to be required, particularly in the context of a changing climate. Can I have a mover to recommendation 8? Councillor Whittaker, seconded Mayor Tanchos. Debate? Is there any debate? Councillor Hamill.
As I understand those rough order costs, they not including the absolute cost of construction, they are the cost of repairs. So they're not necessarily the whole of life costs. I don't know whether that's something that we just need to debate at a later stage when we get down to costings, but I'm not sure it's a particularly helpful when we're not considering the construction costs.
Mayor Tantros.
Thank you. Just in response to that, and generally the way I'm reading these notes is it's simply asking us to acknowledge that these are the things that the reports say. That we're not actually agreeing with them or not. We're simply noting that the report says this thing. So that's the first thing. In terms of the question of cost, you're quite right, we don't have detailed costings. And for me, the point of this is simply saying that we acknowledge that given the, we acknowledge that slips are going to be ongoing and regular. And so we're just acknowledging that if we reinstate, reinstatement is going to have to keep happening. I think that's all, that's the point of it really.
Okay. So I put that recommendation 8. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against and carried. Thank you. Moving on to recommendation 9, that the Projects and Services Committee note that liability for health and safety under the Health and Safety Act of 2015 cannot be delegated by Council, and that the Chief Executive and General Manager of Community Experience are liable for health and safety on the Tapuwae Toi Walkway between West End and Otawaireri Point Lookout, including during any reinstatement works, ongoing maintenance and management of the track. Can I have a mover? Councillor O'Brien, and seconded by Mayor Tantros. Any debate, councillors? Councillor Whittaker?
I have a bit of a concern about health and safety and who it's responsible for it. 2 days ago, I was on the other part of Tapuwae going up to the boardwalk, and there you have to cross farmland, and there's stiles there to cross the farmland. Now, if I go back quite a number of years ago, there was a lady walking there that fell on the stile, landed on her ribs, punctured her liver, went to the hospital, was misdiagnosed and consequently died. So who was responsible for that? Was the CEO of the council at that time responsible? I don't know. Was never taken to court. So you've got to question where the responsibility really lies in health and safety. So I just thought I'd make that as a comment.
Sorry, Mayor Tantros.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'd say that the legislation is really clear that we as councillors are exempt from liability for health and safety. We're personally exempt, but our staff are liable in the law. That doesn't mean that they're responsible for every mishap that happens, because, if you go back through the report, if there's a low risk, and falling over and puncturing your liver at a stile I would have thought is a pretty low risk because it's very unlikely to happen. If there's a low risk, then the obligation on the staff is to take steps. If there's a risk, the obligation on staff is to reduce those risks or mitigate those risks in some ways, and it's depending on the severity of the outcome and the likelihood of it happening. So it's not saying they can't allow anything to happen because they might be liable if someone hurts themselves. It's simply saying they have an obligation to mitigate risk as far as they practically can. And that's what we expect, that's what we do in all our activities. But I think this is just acknowledging, I think it is an important thing for us, because we're talking about, some of these things have potential risk if they're not mitigated. We have to be aware that we're not personally liable, our staff are, and it would be really unfair of us and unethical to ask them to take liability for things that we're exempt from. That's all.
Councillor Hamill.
Thanks for clarifying that, Mayor Tantros. In that case, do we need to have an extra point in there which just says that we acknowledge that staff and the CE are responsible or liable for health and safety under reasonable risk mitigation, or some sort of context? Or is that not relevant?
It says it now, doesn't it? I think it says it. Okay, I think we'll leave it at that. Councillor Boynton?
I think that it's good that it's in there because ultimately, as governance, we want to ensure that we do protect our staff and that we abide by legislation and the rules. I guess for me, it's just having that wider context that our staff are responsible under the Act for many of our sites and areas that we cover, and that anything at any time can happen, and that liability risk is there. But what protects us is our job to have due diligence, and that's where I've highlighted before, for us to be able to do that fully, we do need to have that preparation time, that full workshop, to be able to gain some really strong clarity on what we do to move forward. And in that way, we're also serving our communities right as well. So I acknowledge this, but I also understand there's a wider picture to it as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Any further debate? Councillor Janice?
Thank you, Mr Chair. Just in going along with that thought, I think the Health and Safety Act also means that the individual has to take responsibility too. Now, I know where I used to work, a gentleman there read all the signs saying don't stick your finger in that machine. They had guards saying don't stick your finger in that machine. He undid the guard, he stuck his finger in the machine and he lost it, okay? Because he was trying to undo... Stop me. He's trying to undo a blockage, okay? Now, Health and Safety came and investigated everything and realised that there were enough signs there that he should have taken note. They then turned around and sued the worker. So not only did he lose the top of his finger, he lost a bit of money. So I agree with the fact is you minimise your risks, you mitigate it by putting up signs saying enter at your own risk. This section is liable to slips. And you've mitigated by having a walkway out, not digging into the bank again. And I just think sometimes we overcook that whole thing. And as the councillor over there said, when that lady hurt herself and passed away, they didn't sue the chief executive, they realised it was an accident.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, any further debate on recommendation 9? There not being any further debate, I put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? And carried. Thank you. Right, we move to recommendation 10, and I'm going to ask Deputy Mayor Dukes if she should read out what the preferred recommendation there is, please.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'd like to propose that we change recommendation 10 to a modified option 2 recommendation, which is that the Projects and Services Committee agree to seek proposals from the community for the repair and reinstatement of the track between West End and Otawariri Point, and to investigate the availability of the MB funding to support the project. And the rationale behind that is that Council will still have the ability to determine if the community proposal is suitably resourced and meets the Council's quality, health and safety, maintenance and funding requirements.
Have you not included option 2 in there?
It's a modified option.
You haven't actually stated option 2?
No, because it isn't actually the option 2 that is in the report. It's actually a modified option 2, so I left the word out option 2. Because we're actually, the option 2 says that it won't be funded, and I've said that I want us to investigate the MB funding. So it is option 2, but it's a modified option 2. So you can use the words modified option 2 if you would prefer to have the word option 2 in there.
Sorry?
Sure.
Deputy Mayor, if you would just add in the option 2, so it makes it quite specific that the Projects and Services Committee agree to a modified option 2 to seek proposals from the community for the repair and reinstatement of the track between West End and Otawariri Point, and to investigate the availability of the MB funding to support the project. Okay. Excuse me. That's the recommendation. Been moved by Councillor Dukes. Can I have a seconder? Well, all right, we can take it from about 4 different ways. So I'll take it from councillor Boynton and now open for debate. So, sorry, Mayor Tantros.
Before I give my contribution to the debate, could I ask a clarification, which is, are there any, does staff foresee any issues in the way that's worded, any unintended consequences that we should be aware of?
I think it's important to note that sections 1 and 6A still need to be addressed, so it's not just the 2 slip sites where the track has come away, but we need to assess the track in entirety in terms of what would be acceptable for staff to approve.
So that being the case, go for it, Steve.
No, I was just going to say, I don't see any issues with it, apart from it should probably be a holistic proposal.
So what would that mean in terms of how that would be worded?
I think noting the track in its entirety meets the appropriate levels.
Okay, we can add that. Word entirety, track in its entirety.
And can I just check, can proposals include alternative routes?
Yeah, they should. I think
Just
it
more
should be an
interactive.
open. We should be open to any options really, as long as it addresses the security of the whole route.
Yeah.
Any further debate? Yeah.
Can I clarify? So we're asking the community then to come up with solutions for the whole of the Route 1 and provide options for Route 2. Is that what we're asking by this?
I didn't think and. I thought we were saying come with proposals, but we're not going to constrain you to one thing or another. So we're open to various options that might be put forward. That's how I read it. But
So not limiting it to just Route 1.
yeah.
Okay.
Councillor James, then Councillor Emmett. Councillor James?
No, I only had my hand up to second the proposal. And I've got no debate at all.
Okay. Councillor Emmett.
This is not my debate question, it's just following on from Councillor Hamill. So for the community voluntary group to, I wasn't sure if they were already committing to doing the whole track or they were just looking at solutions to help us get through Route 1. And so are we being fair on expecting them to come up with something in its entirety?
I'm going to hand over to the Chief Executive because I think it comes back to a workshop that we've got to have as a council, but anyway.
I'm just thinking this through, that any proposal that comes up needs to give the council the confidence that you can get from the start to the end. So I think that's why I sort of said it probably needs to be a holistic perspective, and I think that's what Alex is talking about. And also the second part now in my mind is, because start to end also means being able to take that step to New Zealand Great Walks.
Okay, any further debate?
I have actually a debating contribution, if I may. If we're finished with all those clarifications. So the first thing is I want to thank all the people who are in the room today. It's really great to see a huge community turnout for an issue that people hold really dearly. And I know there's a huge depth of feeling and support around reinstating this track. So thank you all for being here and for the advocacy that's gone on in the community for some time now to see this through.
Type it up.
I want to say that there's been some comments about how this is actually really easy and we can do it with a teaspoon and things like that. I'm not sure it's going to be as easy as people expect, to be honest. I think there's quite a lot in it. But having said that, I think we absolutely want to give the community a chance to have a go at it and see if it can be solved. And I'm very confident that the community will come up with some really good solutions. And this is important because the value of community involvement in our our infrastructure, our social infrastructure, in the stuff that we do in our community is really, really important. There's obvious benefits for us as a council. There's financial benefits because it means that the community can help both to reduce the cost of these things and also can help fund some of these things. But possibly more important is the community ownership that happens as a result, at the buy-in and the community building that comes from being part of something, building something positive for our community and for future generations. I think there's just something invaluable in that, and so I want to acknowledge that. And also, I'm reminded of the comments of Jim Robson at the public meeting in Ohope some time ago, that the level of care that's involved when community is involved is something else again, because when people kind of adopt a bit of a track, they take care of it and they're able to maintain it and monitor it in ways that council can't, because it's just unaffordable for us. So I think there's these enormous benefits. We have lost something, I think, as a country with the health and safety legislation that's made it much more difficult to involve community in things. And we have to adhere to that legislation, and our staff are personally liable. We have to be really aware of that stuff. And I think we have lost something. And we cannot, as I said, put our staff at legal risk that we're exempted from. But I think we can find a way through. And I think this is an opportunity for us as a council to find new ways of working with community and for community to work with council. So I'm really, really positive and optimistic about the outcomes from this. And I think it'll take a lot of goodwill on both sides. I think our council has to look at how we can be empowering, how we can be enabling of our community, and approach it with a can-do attitude, recognising that we've got legal and ethical obligations. And I think community also has to understand and come with goodwill that council is bound by lots of legal constraints. We move slower than we would like to, and that's just because of the environment that we operate it in. So that can make us a bit clunky, but all of our council staff are here to serve the community and to do their best. And having been here for 9 years now, 10 years, I've got no doubt that all of our council staff are here to do their best and to serve the community. And so when we see sometimes comments that badmouth our staff in public, it's really unhelpful, because what I think we need to see is a really healthy, positive working relationship between community and council. And I think out of that, we can get something really tremendous. So I think this is a great opportunity to demonstrate how council and community can work together. I want to thank all the community people who've put themselves forward to be part of this. I want to thank all of our council staff and all of our councillors who've listened to that and heard that. And I think we can do something amazing. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Mayor Tantros. Councillor James?
Yeah, I just want to say that I fully support option 2 as read out by the Deputy Mayor without putting any of our staff at risk. I think to the detriment, I think, of the whole New Zealand. The last 20 or 30 years, everyone, because of health and safety and that, we're all losing track of the abilities and the capabilities of people in our community, local communities, and there's a lot of expertise floating around this town and that, and we don't always make good use of it. And I think this is a great opportunity to take it by the bull by the horns.
Okay, just while we're waiting for recommendation 10 to be typed up so that we can be quite sure that we've got the wording precise. Councillor Hamill.
I would tautoko both what Mayor Tantros has said and Councillor James. I'm supportive of option 2. I think that we have, with our reworded, I think that we underestimate how experienced our local community can be, and especially in track and trail building, I know for sure. I think that it would be really nice. It would be a really nice model to have the community develop a structure which the council and staff can work with and see what we come out of, and it might tick both our low cost, our priority, and also building community together. So I'm looking forward to seeing it happen, and I'm looking forward to see what the community brings to us.
Cool. Councillor Boyden.
Yes, I'd also like to tautoko the kōrero I mua aho that was said before me as well, and I am in support of the modified recommendation from Deputy Mayor, and also acknowledge that this isn't about community versus safety. I think this recommendation ensures that we allow for us to have a space in which we can work our way through that, and that we give that opportunity. And I think we've heard that from around the councillors around the table. I also just want to acknowledge too Ngāku Te He in regards to what my questions that I was asking before regarding Ngāti Awa. So I just wanted to take that back and apologise for any offence that I may have caused, but Ngāku Te He, I had got that information wrong. But a mihi to the community and also to our staff and our councillors. And I think this is a great example of where our council as a whole is heading with our new leadership, is our ability to shift and sort, push and pull, so that we can have something in which we're all benefiting. Thank you.
Councillor Emick.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the report, and thank you very much to the volunteer track community and Bridget for your information that you sent through during the weekend. We only received this at 4:57 on Friday afternoon, as the public did, and I am really concerned that we haven't really followed our usual good due process for decision making. You know, whether it's Rex Morpeth Park or Mitchell Park or the art strategy or road naming, where we have consultants come in and give us some technical information, we always have a workshop or a briefing so that councillors can be duly informed to make the right decisions. So I'm disappointed that we haven't had that ability. I think the number of questions that were asked in clarity today, the fact that there are 11 resolutions, noting that most of them were notes, just speaks to how councillors do want to be informed the best that they can. Fully supportive of option 2, and that council give financial assistance in supporting the MB funding if the community group is successful with their proposal. And not only that, but to help enable them with any other future grant funds as well. Thanks.
Thank you, councillor. Any other comments? Just before we put that amended resolution, I again would just like to reiterate some of the words that have been put forward by the speakers this morning. I'd had the pleasure of meeting with both Austin and Angus recently, and I fully understand their passion and their capabilities. And again, as Councillor Emick alluded to get that very detailed email from Bridget on Friday, again, thank you for the in-depth knowledge that you have shared with us. I also share the councillors' concerns there with regards, had we had a workshop, we possibly could have worked through a lot more of the questions that we've had to ask today. And again, thank David Milner from Tonkin and Taylor for making himself available to answer a lot of those comments and questions. Thank you, David. So again, yeah, it's great to see. It's something else that again, with rate capping around the corner, it's an expense to reinstate that track that we, as ratepayers, again, would find that, I think, well beyond our means. It is a iconic track that's used for, or it has been used in the past, even the days when I competed in Oxfam, that was very much part of the course, and of course with the Toy Challenge, not to mention the spectacular views the users get looking out from that track. And again, hopefully it will be another tourist attraction that will attract people back into our district once it's reinstated. Okay, if there's nothing further, have we got that recommendation 10 available to be?
Just need to confer with Alex about, did you want that just to say, is it supposed to be route 1 or is it just the route 2 that's reliant on sections 1 and 6A when you mentioned that? It is only Route 2 that's reliant on sections 1 and 6A of the existing track, but
It's both, it's Route 1 and 2. Yep.
Okay.
It's before and after those sections.
All right, councillors. Steve.
Just a point of clarification. Does it need to say at the end, and to continue to look at options for alternative routes? Because in some ways it's sounding like it's reading that you want staff to look at alternative routes. But I think actually what that should mean is that the proposals can include the existing and alternative routes. Is that correct? Just wanting to clarify that.
Mr Chairman, I'd agree with what the Chief Executive said. If you look at the next recommendation down, it actually states that we continue the other one. And if we're actually saying this is the way we want to go, why would you have your staff waste their time doing the other one? If this one fails, then we look at the alternative one. But I'd rather have the staff concentrate on the this one rather than look at 10 different other ones.
So could I suggest that it says track between West End and to
Tapuwae Bay.
investigate the available. No, hold it. I think it needs to go in the middle somewhere. It needs to say the existing route or alternative routes between West End and. So up on the second line.
Yeah.
The establishment of the existing track or alternative routes between.
Take track out.
Is that okay?
Take track out. No, on the second line.
To support the project, and then take out that fourth line, also the route. I don't think you need that. Is that okay, Alex, Ian?
Why would you include alternative routes? I thought we're actually looking at doing this one. Because once again, according to that, the staff not only will be working with the community group to re-establish the existing route, but you've also got them looking at the alternative route, so.
Yeah, what it does enable though, is it doesn't constrain the thinking of the community groups. I suspect that they'll start with the existing track, but just in case it's actually not working, it does enable them to go a little bit broader.
Agree, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Moved and seconded. Any further debate? I'll read it, that the Projects and Services Committee agree to a modified option 2 to seek proposals from the community for the repair and re-establishment of the existing track or alternative routes between West End and Tapuwae, and to investigate the availability of funding from MB to support the project.
I'm supportive, but I just wanted to check, do we need to put a time frame or that they'll come back to council on this?
No, I think we're pretty much aware that this has got to move with some urgency now, councillor. I think, yeah, it's a given. Okay, all those in favour, I'm going to put the resolution 10. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against and carried. Okay, councillors, well, the final one is recommendation 11, that the Projects and Services Committee agree to continue exploring with Ngāti Awa and the Department of Conservation that the re-establishment of the Tapuwae Toi Walkway be developed into an official short walks and day hikes track that recognises its potential as an outstanding visitor attraction and its importance to the Whakatane community. Can I have a mover? Yep. Councillor Whittaker, seconder. Councillor Boynton. Debate. No further debate?
Just to say that we've got to get it fixed first. I was just to say that we've got to get it fixed first, I guess.
I think that's a given, going by the previous recommendation. Councillor James.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea, but by doing this, is that going to open us up to further stringent health and safety risks, or is it just stay as it is?
The Department of Conservation would require a certain standard for the track to meet before that would be agreed as a one-day walk status. So, but that remains regardless of who or how the work is carried out.
Yeah. It does say explore, so yeah, I guess that means to look into. Okay. Sorry, do you have something to add, Councillor Hammond?
Yeah, a question really about the engagement with Ngāti and just interested in how much engagement's already happened on this with Hapu and Ngāti and whether there's been any other sort of more widespread discussion about it with the community. In which order does it normally flow? Because I don't think we've had a formal mention to council about it. I've heard informally, but I just wondered, as a newbie, how do you prioritise when you start this engagement when council haven't heard about it?
It does note in the report the engagement that's happened to date. There have been discussions, conversations with Turinanga and Hapu as well, and that's part of our ongoing conversations that we have generally, but there would be, continued ongoing engagement, involvement, partnership, level agreements, etc., getting into the next stages.
Okay, any further debate? No? Okay, I'm going to put recommendation 11. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? And carried. Look, thank you so much, councillors. Thank you again to you, Alex, and to Ian, and also to the big delegation that have come forward to hear this reach I felt, a rather positive conclusion on today's agenda. So again, thank you for your perseverance and tolerance from this morning. And on that note, it being 12, we're going to adjourn for lunch. Okay, councillors, we're going to reassume, and we're going to move to item 6.5, the approval of the Whakatane District Council submissions to central government, and the first one being, exactly as I've indicated, and we have Walt at the desk. Good afternoon to you, Walt. Welcome to the table.
Afternoon, tēnā koutou katoa. So just a quick introduction before we get into the specific submissions that are attached to the report. So as you're all very much aware around this table now, central government is progressing a whole bunch of reforms that are having an impact on local government. Over the past 2 months, we've worked through a number of workshops to unpack the proposals that are coming out of central government, to discuss those and consider our responses to those. So this paper's about sharing some final submissions with you for approval before we get those away to central government. So the first 3 of those are the simplifying local government proposal, the changes to the development levy system, and the infrastructure funding and financing bill. Those 3, as I said, we've workshopped those. You've got the final wording of the submissions attached to the paper, and all 3 of those are due tomorrow. The 4th one attached is the rates capping proposal, which you've also had a number of discussions around. That one's already been approved, so we're not looking for your approval on that one. That one's being shared through this agenda for your information and for the public record. So that's the 4th one attached to that. The only other thing I'd really add here is that we've got a whole bunch more on the way, and I've mentioned that previously at the workshop. We've got the climate adaptation bill that we're still waiting for, building reforms that we're still waiting for, and I can't remember if it was earlier this week or late last week, but a bill's hit Parliament around the disestablishment of the Ministry for the Environment, and for the Ministry of Environment, alongside transport, alongside housing and urban, and alongside the local government functions of DIA to come together into one ministry. We're not discussing that one today. I'm just letting you know that that's arrived too, so we'll be working through whether that has potential implications and bringing you some information around those pieces as when they arrive. So I'll turn back to you, Mr. Chair. If there's any feedback that you'd like us to consider, or any changes or tweaks to the submissions that still require approval, we can do that, and we can make the resolution, subject to any of those final tweaks. But otherwise, you've got those submissions in front of you there.
Thank you, Walt. Okay, councillors, it's over to you. Have we got any comments that we want added, or? Sorry, Councillor Hamill.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and congratulations. Walter, this is a really good submission. I just found it a really straightforward submission, really clearly worded, and it's already included our discussion points I can see from our previous workshops. So good work.
Any further questions? Points of clarification? No? You're happy to move? Okay, it's been moved by Deputy Mayor Jukes. Excuse me. Is there a seconder? Seconded, Councillor James. Any further debate?
It was just to comment really also with the submissions that you've put forward, and just to commend the work that's been done, considering the amount that has to be in, and especially also too with regards to last week's as well. So it was just really to acknowledge the mahi. Thank you.
I pass that on too, because
Our team, yeah.
Okay, no further debate?
No debate from me, through you, Mr. Chair. Just good work, Walt, and thank you to the people who have done these submissions. So I'm impressed with them. They're really good. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to put all 5 recommendations. I don't think I need to read them out. So all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? And carried. That was very quick, sweet, wasn't it, Walt? Okay, that brings us to the end.
We've had somebody pass away.
Better off funding, hold, it's 249, I'm getting there, I'm getting there.
Sorry. I've got to
Got to get to this thing faster, don't I, David? Eh? Oh, welcome to the table, Sarah. Would you like to speak to your report, please?
I'm going to introduce it today.
I'm sorry, it's Vanessa going to speak to
It's
it.
okay.
Sorry.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to present this update. I will take the paper as read, but there are a few points we'd like to highlight for the 7 projects that are funded through the Better Off funding program. The paper in front of you, it is for your information. We're not seeking any decisions today. We do have within the room the project managers for the various projects, so that if there are project-specific questions, we're able to call them up to answer them.
Okay.
In terms of the key points of the paper, the overall program of works is progressing steadily, with meaningful progress achieved across multiple projects. During the reporting period, 2 projects were completed, the collective iwi and CCTV projects. The total number of completed projects now sits at 4. There are 3 remaining projects, which are the Southern Districts, the Edgecumbe to Thornton Cycleways and Natural Hazard Resilience projects, which are nearing completion. As noted in the report, there are some challenges. The Edgecumbe to Thornton Cycleway, we will be bringing a separate program level update through to council for a separate discussion to kind of run you through where those are all at. And construction of the Waiui Street alternate EOC has been temporarily halted following an unexpected archaeological discovery. Thank you. We're happy to take questions on the report.
Thank you, Vanessa. Okay, councillors, any questions of clarification there? Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and good afternoon, ladies. I've got a couple of questions. I think the first one is, how do we present our outcomes to MB, to their satisfaction?
Just making sure it's working. Yep. So I assume MB is like the DIA reporting.
DIA,
Yep.
Okay.
So there is actually a portal that we submit all of the updates and submit the claims for funding at certain periods.
Okay. And so there's nothing that's at risk at the moment of the ones that are outstanding?
When you say at risk, can you clarify?
Well, just like the, yeah. Well, it is at risk. Did we end up changing our, I'm just thinking about the Hana Hopuri van sort of thing, so that was for the purchase of the 2 vans and to increase community engagement. How do DIA know we did what we said we did with the purchases and the outcomes?
So within the portal, you're reporting on the milestones and you actually report back to the DIA once the project has been completed, which Hono Hapiri has. And then you discontinue any updates from that point.
All right, okay. Another, if you don't mind, Mr.
You
Chair.
go for it.
Just in terms of the iwi policy hub, so like there's a lot of intangible outcomes there. Can you share what we've actually spent our money on as part 1? And 2, do we has the creation of it now given us more responsibility and budget that we have to do to keep it going?
Yeah, in terms of intangible outcomes, there were a lot of large projects that the iwi Policy Hub helped respond to: Eastern Bay Planning Spatial Plan, Local Growth Strategy, Local Water Done Well. These are big items even for a well-resourced council, so for iwi to be responding to that, and in some cases hapu.
So that was financial assistance?
No, this is consultants supporting their submissions or supporting their work in that. And in terms of your second question, no, we're not on the hook. This was a pilot.
Okay.
And as far as we understand, they are continuing to the offering into next year. And there's other sort of sources of funding, including, I think, regional council. But iwi have to apply separately and individually for those.
Thank you.
Mayor Tanchos.
Thank you. Just a supplementary on that. No ongoing costs, but are there ongoing benefits? I'm just thinking about the Waters Working Group, and we're going to have to, as part of that program of work, think through how we engage with tangata whenua. And so I'm just wondering if there's what we can draw from that in terms of that engagement.
Actually, well, separately, one of the outcomes of this pilot was actually the need and the value in the council to iwi direct relationships. So while this policy hub was a great resource for iwi, we were sometimes a bit removed from that relationship. So that's one sort of outcome that we noted. In terms of what can be done, this is anecdotal evidence and sort of remarks from iwi, but they have sort of, in being involved with the policy hub, their standards, their skills, sort of their capability has raised in-house, and they're looking to upskill their own within the iwi to be able to respond a little bit better on their own, because it's been sort of a 2-year pilot program, and the consultants have been working hand in hand with people within the iwi, so their capabilities have raised as well. So indirectly, yes.
I'm thinking specific, again, just thinking specifically about the Waters Working Group, the having done the work on the local waters done well must mean that there's people who are kind of in a much better place to engage.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Brien.
Just in reference to the Edgecumbe, Thornton, Sakwe, in the commentary you said there's need for strengthened hapu support. Is that in reference to the Thornton, Edgecumbe, Sakwe, or is that the other Sakwe's within the area?
I'm just going to call up the project manager for that project. He'll be able to answer it more accurately.
Yeah, I think that applies to the water program. That definitely applies to the water program as well. But yes, we do need to strengthen hapu support for Edgecumbe to Thornton.
Oh, okay. The problems we're having with hapu support along the Edgecumbe Thornton highway? Sakwe?
So Toi Walkway have, we've completed a CIA with them, and they did raise concerns in their CIA about that cycle trail.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you for clarifying it.
Councillor Roman.
Thank you. Just in terms of the southern towns, Ngāti Manawa, Ngāti Whare, so while you said we're not on the hook for anything, it seems like we're helping them to set up their community plans, and then what's our responsibility then?
Yeah, sorry, that's a little bit separate. I'll invite Donna and Nicholas up to speak to that.
I just hope it doesn't undo the good work that we have been doing, but we don't have any extra funds.
No.
Kia ora. So with the southern towns, that creates a master plan, which would be endorsed. Ultimately, will come before committee at a later stage. It's not quite ready. And the other component is some activation projects for the master plan. So it doesn't have a bit beyond that. And so what that involves is there will be an overarching master plan that would be developed by the iwi authority, but it would be implemented over a longer period. And I don't have it in front of you today, but we can talk to that at a future stage. The actual projects that then help implement parts of that have a limited budget. One of those for Murupara, there's some project works identified as part of the water treatment upgrade. The Minganui one still needs to be determined exactly what projects will be done, but they're one-offs essentially. It's not an ongoing requirement for council to fund.
Okay, just a supplementary. So the remaining 490 odd budget that we've got left, these little implementation things come out of that budget.
Yeah, that's correct. So it's 250,000 for Murupara, another 150,000 for Manganui, and the balance of that, which is in the 90,000 things, just finishing off the master plans. So they are all being delivered within the budget that was set for those projects.
And then do we hand over to those to iwi? It's all up to them after that to develop the master plan?
The master plans have a range of different entities that would be involved in different stages. So it's not a one and done thing, it's an ongoing thing where the iwi authority would look to engage with Luxor Council and central government in the future to, but really sets out what their aspirations are for those two communities.
Okay, thank
and
you.
then they're long-term documents.
Councillor Boynton.
Going on from Councillor Mick and the master plan, do those plans sort of tie into what was represented in the feedback given towards this in the spatial plan? Do they relate?
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, councillors. Oh, go for it.
Sorry, just on the CCTV. So we've completed that project and when will we receive a bit of an update on how we're trying to stop crime? Yeah, like, is it working? Like, have we invested wisely in all of that?
Of course, that fantastic project that was delivered on time and on budget was mine when I was general manager. Possibly why I ended up in this role. We did do, it was a great project, it's a great project. Ian did do a closeout workshop with council and we had the people online showing you all the screens and all that sort of stuff. And at that point, that was sort of considered the end point for the project itself. And now it's just become business as usual, which I think is referenced in the report. But if you want just some sort of general update on crime, maybe that's something we can go away and pull together. I mean, maybe we'd get the partnerships team to do that. But yeah, the CCTV is actively used, particularly by police. Yeah, I haven't got really much else to say in terms of an
I think it's an
update.
opportunity for a media release, 24 months on, and a statement from the police about how it's actually helping our community be safer. I don't know.
Yeah, okay, well, there's some good ideas on there. We'll take those away if we can make them work.
Okay, councillors, anything? Happy to move. Moved by Deputy Mayor Dukes, seconded by Councillor Boynton. Any further debate? There being no further debate, I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? And on that note, brings the meeting to a close. Thank you all for your participation, and we're going to close with the karakia, if I may ask. Councillor O'Brien to close for us, please.
Kia ora tātou. Mā ki whakakapi. Kia taunga manaki tonga te meangaro iungi tēnā mātou kia maha heitu o mā ki hiki. Toi te kupu, toi te mana kia toinga tikanga koe ia te whakairihia, he whakawātea. Haumi e, hui e.
Taheki e. Kia ora, thank you too. And thank you to staff, much appreciated.